Alright, Twitch and YouTube fans, good morning. Captain Nabs is here with you once again for another flight in our 737 here for WestJet Airlines. It's been a fun couple of legs crossing the Canadian prairies, doing some domestic flying, and now we're just going to keep on going with it. So today we get to return to home base. Today's flight is a pretty straightforward one. It's a straight shot from Winnipeg, where we are right now, all the way back to Vancouver. It's a little bit of a long flight, a little bit under 3 hours. By the time the stream's done, probably about 3.5. So let's get this show on the road before it gets too late here. So without too much further ado, we will hop in the flight deck and get going here. As always, today we will be accompanied by our trusty FS2 crew. And before we do anything much else, we're just going to do two things here. We're just going to pull up the FMS, set our fuel to not full fuel, and this is one thing that bugs me, and I wish PMDG would save your fuel from the last flight, or at least give it to you as an option to save the fuel from the last flight. So we'll say we came in with about 7. I honestly don't remember, but we'll say we came in with 7, because then we can summon the fuel truck and we'll have to give it a new fuel load when it gets here. So that'll be the first thing we get to do there. And then other than that, we can power on this puppy here. Battery on, gives you some power, and ground power really brings this baby to life. And then other than that, we'll just get the emergency lights armed, make sure that the position lights are on steady, and we'll crane our neck way back here. We may just have to do something like this. I know somewhere I had a view. There we go. That's pretty good there anyways. Get those IRSs aligning. Check those backup gear lights. Check the overspeed. And the flight recorder. The off light goes off, it's working. And there we go. Hop right into our FS2 crew as always here, and let's just go through it, make sure it's appropriate. We're doing a gate pushback. We'll assume that Winnipeg has SDX takeoff thrust. We'll do a derated takeoff today with an assumed temperature because it's cold out here in the prairies. We'll do a flap 10 takeoff. I think that'll be sufficient. And yeah, no ETOPS, bleeds on for takeoff, anti-ice. It looks like a clear morning out there, so we shouldn't need that. Crew change, underweight, departure. Departure procedure will be a SID, noise abatement, departure procedure not really required. We'll pretty much fly it that way anyways, and concerns none. Let's go ahead and get this thing started.
Okay, let's get this show on the road.
That's what I said. Alright, the other thing I realize here as I'm sitting here is that I don't think I actually logged into VATSIM before I connected to the stream here, so we're just going to do that real quickly here so we can take advantage of any ATC and traffic that might be out there this morning. Let's just see if this recognized me. Yes, it's got my pre-filed flight plan, so it's all good. Okay, perfect. Sorry about that, guys. Normally I try to do that before I connect. In this case, I just plumb forgot. Got a little distracted with a couple things before I started streaming, but yeah. So that's it for getting the airplane fired up. He's going to basically throw a few switches, go to the walk around. We are going to get into programming that FMC as always. So let's go ahead and bring up the FMC, and as always, we're going to bring it up with my AviaWorks. Nope, not that one. That one. My AviaWorks server, because frankly it just makes, especially inputting large amounts of data, so much nicer and so much easier. So we'll go ahead and select the FMC. We'll initialize the position. On page 2 it'll give us all of our GPS readouts that have already been calculated in the first minute or so after the airplane turned on. Then we'll use that to initialize the IRS, and then we can continue on with the route menu. Pretty much the bottom right corner here is going to always lead you kind of in the right direction for where you need to go during a setup flow. So we're going to put Winnipeg in there. We're going to put Vancouver over here. And our flight number today is WestJet 307. And there it is there. And then we can do a departure procedure here. So before we do that, of course, we've got to figure out what the weather's doing. Always something in this. So the weather in Winnipeg, ooh, brrrr. The caption to the stream is right. It's cold out there. It's minus 33 degrees. And when it gets that cold, you don't even need me to tell you if it's in Celsius or Fahrenheit. Because minus 30 anything is bloody cold. Alright, so we've got winds 290 at Niner. So we might do a 3-1 takeoff today. In which case I feel like we may want to go back and put it to flaps 15 for our takeoff. 15 miles, clear skies, because it's minus 33 and the altimeter 3026. So let's set that just quickly before we forget. Because it's easy to do, so when you look at the ATIS the first time, you really should just set all the information. Read it through once, glean all the information you need out of it, and deal with that information. So let's just set this as well. Set the standby gauge. There we go. And of course now the fuel truck is here. Pull up my flight plan on the other screen here really quickly, and it says we're going to need about, not a whole lot of fuel for this flight today. It's estimating 12,000. Is that 12,000 pounds, really? That's it? That seems very low for such a, I think this accidentally did in kilograms. I usually try to remember to switch it to pounds for this airplane type, but yes, that is in pounds. Okay, good. So, and there you go. Like, when you do something, when you see a number at aviation, that's one of those important things. Make sure it sounds reasonable. Considering that it took me, like, I think 20 or 30,000 pounds to get to Winnipeg for a shorter flight, 11,000 pounds to go all the way back seemed very strange. So I've redone it now with pounds, and this makes more sense. 25,000 pounds. So that makes much more sense. We can go into the FS Actions menu here, fuel. And let's give it 26,000 pounds. So let's get this fueler to round up by an extra 1,000 pounds for us. And then it's good. Okay, so we got that done. Back to programming the FMC. Departure, so we're going to do departure off of 3-1. The winds are 290 true, so yeah, let's do that. And then we don't have a controller online to pick a departure for us, so we're going to be kind of on our own here. The departures and everything are pretty... maybe just me, but that background air blowing just seems really loud. Yeah, there's no ATC online to give us any directive on our SIDs today, so we're just going to go and have a quick look at the couple choices we have here. I'm pretty sure the Winnipeg 2 is just a straight up vector SID, just runway heading for vectors on course. And then I think the Grizzly 2 and the Vogig 2 are fairly similar. You know what, it's actually the Grizzly 2 is the jet departure, the Winnipeg 2 is the prop departure. And the Grizzly and the Vogig departure just has a little fix off the departure end. And then you keep going. 2 fixes off the departure end, and then you keep going. Which I think would be the one we would normally get if we could do it. So we'll do the Vogig 2 departure. And let's get the rest of our route in here. I can get a flight plan in here. There it is. And there's the flight plan route. So after the Vogig departure, we go direct to a fix called Livby. Duckpo, Farron.
Hi, the security and safety checks are all done. Are we good to start boarding?
Yes, please. Go for it.
Okay.
Alright, there we go. Where do we get to? Farron. So after that is YDR. Then VLN. Then Vinco. VLN. And let's see here. We got a whole bunch of choices. North 50 by West 104. The first one offered is usually the most appropriate. The system is smart and it offers you the list. It kind of orders it by the likelihood you're going to select it, basically by the distance from where you are right now. Vinco, Q828 to Booth, and then the Canuck 5 arrival back into Vancouver.
Okay, I'm back from the walk around. Everything.
And there's been 26 right, which means, or 26 left, which means probably 26 right. ILS 2. Ah. Do it again, because I screwed it up. That one, but then 26 right. Fat fingers didn't quite get it in there properly. Activate and execute. Perfect. Perf init. We'll scroll through our flight plan and grab the ZFW from the flight plan. And then we'll get the updated one once boarding is complete, which I really should actually trigger boarding here. Give me 1 second. Let me just finish with this init page here. Actually, let's just do it really quickly here. Request boarding, please. And I don't even know how many passengers we have today. How many passengers do we have today? That'll be down here. Oop, on page 3. 181 passengers, which actually we did not... I realize that I am doing this all out of my normal order today. I didn't set the payload before I started the stream either. I had a little frustration before I got this stream started, so it really kind of... I can't even do 181 passengers in this airplane. The most I can do is 160, so, well, that's what we'll do. Had a little distraction, a little frustration before I started the stream, which really kind of, I guess, took away more of my attention than I realized. Alright, so there we go. So we've got that in there, the ZFW. We can close up that guy. Well, we won't worry about closing him right now. Reserves. So reserves are the amount of fuel we need to have before we go to our alternate. So we need the alternate fuel and the final reserve. A lot of flight planning systems will add these two numbers up and show you the total of these two numbers so you have it as one. I don't... it's a little frustrating that I'm always adding these two together. So 32 and 23 is 55 with a little extra left over, so we'll say 56. So 5,600 pounds. Cost index today, let's see what it's at. Cost index 7. That is a very inefficient cost index, and we will be ramping that up to a higher value and a cruise of 340. Cruise wind, we'll put it in there right now. 305 at 60 is the average estimated cruise wind according to our flight plan. So we'll put that in as well, just to have it as a starting point for the wind calculations, and we can always download the wind later. Let's see here. Takeoff 1 and climb 1, and we'll do a takeoff flex temperature 30 degrees. Let's see if that will give us takeoff numbers. I have to put in the flap setting, and it does give us takeoff numbers, so the FMC calculates that we can get off the ground, off that runway with that flap setting. So it won't show you anything until you pick the flap setting, because the flap setting is obviously integral to how much distance is required. As long as it crunches numbers, we should, in theory, be able to make it off that runway with this configuration. So there we go, the takeoff is programmed in, so we are basically all done with the FMC. V2 is 151. So let's get rid of you. Let's get rid of you while we're at it. And let's go ahead and set, starting with our speed here of 151 V2. And then we'll just get the other information that we need in there as well. The runway heading 315. And per the SID, the top altitude. Climb and maintain 4,000. So 4,000 feet is set. Let's get our flight directors all flipped on here. And we could do it in LNAV VNAV mode. It's going to work just fine. Alright, very good. We'll just make sure we have traffic on as well. And let's just check our alerts here. And the rest of our lights as well. There's a hell of a lot of light bulbs in this airplane. Alright, he's got it already set to RTO. That's great. We've got our altimeters set. We've got LNAV VNAV armed on the flight director. We don't need any lighting today. Quick control check. Yes, okay, you're in the wrong place. That's fine. Just make sure that all of my controls are properly configured, because that's what you just do when you work in the virtual flight simulation environment. Make sure everything is loaded up correctly the way you think it has, because it wouldn't be the first time I loaded something up and I thought it was working a certain way, and then I realized that I had, at some point, somehow messed with the controls, and I didn't even realize it. Just get rid of that armrest, because I find it's always in my way. 2000 on the squawk code. All the other trims are zeroed. We can check them if we want to. And that's about it. The boarding should be just about done. We got 13 minutes, and I think he's ready to listen to me yammer on about what we're going to do on departure here. Are you ready for the takeoff briefing? Are you ready for the departure briefing?
Go for it.
Some of them it says takeoff, some of them says departure. That's why I keep struggling sometimes. Okay. Today we are here on the ground in Winnipeg, Gate 4. We're going to taxi out for departure on runway 31. So it's going to be, we'll say through the apron. We'll go out Echo. Pardon me, we'll go out Echo Hotel and Charlie to get to runway 31. We're doing the VOGIG-2 departure off runway 31, 10-3 Echo, effective on the 10th of September of 2020. The transition altitude's 180. Safe altitude 100 miles is 38. For use by GNSS equipped aircraft. Hey, that's us. Jets only. Hey, that's us. And refer to 10-4 for noise abatement departure procedures. The route climb heading 315 to 1300, then direct to Ebkel, then on a track 315 to Vogig, then continue track 315 for vectors to the assigned route and maintain 4000. Alright, so we've got the 4000 set over here. I can see it in the corner. And we're looking for 315 Ebkel and Vogig. 315 Ebkel and Vogig, and that's all there. And there are the comm failure procedures down there as well. In the event of any abnormality during taxi, will stop. This will be a left seat takeoff. Malfunction is part of V1 of 1. I had it there a second ago. 145. I'll call stop or go. If the call is stop, I'll close thrust levers, apply maximum brake, disconnect the auto throttle, apply maximum reverse, stop on the runway with the call. And then we'll verify reverse monitor deceleration, call 60 knots, advise ATC, mayday, WestJet 307 stopping on the runway. If the call is go or right above V1, continue to take off at 400 feet, call for heading mode bank. Verify the bank limit and identify the failure. The engine failure procedure in Winnipeg will be straight ahead. Once we reach acceleration altitude of, what is it here, 1800 feet, we will accelerate, retract the flaps on schedule, and then call for any required memory items or QRH checklists. Noise abatement procedures here, preferential runway arrival procedures, departure procedures, noise abatement procedure 1 or 2. Nothing specifically for runway 31 there. So we can go back and we can actually update this. We can go to the departure window and we can say NADP, sure. We'll do NADP 2 because it's the more common one. We do it most of the time. That's basically it. I didn't see any other major issues. NOTAMs, obviously, should always check those. It's cold. That's about the only thing. Equipment doesn't like it when it's cold. I don't know what the lower limit is on the 37 offhand, but it's probably published in the PMDG manual, and it's probably in the neighborhood of minus 40. Because a lot of aircraft, they tend to test for ground operations down to minus 40, and that tends to be the limit for ground operations. What was I looking for? NOTAMs. NOTAMs. Show me all the NOTAMs. Let's see. Winnipeg. Apron 5 not available. NDB unserviceable. VRDME. Okay, so no exciting NOTAMs. affecting our operation. The aircraft is fully serviceable today, I believe, and we do have sufficient oil. We do have sufficient hydraulic fluid. Yep, everything's good. And that's basically it. Do you have any questions? Any questions?
No questions.
Pre-flight checklist.
Pre-flight checklist. Oxygen.
Tested 100%.
Tested 100%. Navigation transfer and display switches. Normal. Auto. Window heat. On. Pressurization mode selector. Auto. Flight instruments.
Heading 185. Altimeter 3026.
Checked. Parking brake.
Set.
Engine start levers.
Cut off.
Pre-flight checklist complete.
Check. Alright, I would say the boarding looks like it's done here, so maybe we can go a little early.
Welcome aboard our flight today. In preparation for departure, please ensure your seatbelts are fastened, tray tables are up and locked.
Here's the load sheet for you.
Thank you. Alright, we're starting the APU. I guess we're going to need a fuel pump for that, aren't we? Oh, he already has the fuel pump on. I'm confusing with the Mad Dog, where we don't normally turn the fuel pumps on until we're actually ready to start the engines, so you have to turn one on for the APU. And I get confused between all these multiple airplane types that I fly.
Watch out for your leg, please.
So now he's setting the trim wheel based on the printed out the ZFW, which is going to be a lot less. And he's going to ask me to verify the takeoff speeds, because they're actually less, because the ZFW, we have less people than what the flight plan was predicting, because
Verify takeoff speeds.
the flight plan could not, we couldn't take all that many people. Alright, so, as you can see, the speeds went down a little bit. And then he wants to hear the word. Verified. Verified.
Check.
So he knows that we looked in it, we changed that, and we also changed our V2 speed up here because it changed with the lower weight. Alright, and I think we're just about ready to go here. He's just getting through the last couple things of his before start procedure, but we might as well get ready to request pushback and departure. We will not need de-icing today.
Icing conditions. Please stand by for engine start until push completed and brakes set.
She's cold but clear. Before start checklist down to the line. Before start checklist to the line.
Before start checklist to the line. Fuel 26.0.
Hello, Captain. We're ready to push back.
Pounds. Pumps on. Passenger signs on. Windows.
Locked.
Locked. MCP.
Speed 150. Heading 315. Altitude 4000.
Checked. Takeoff speeds.
V1 144, VR 145, V2 150. V2 150. V2 150.
Checked. CDU pre-flight.
Complete.
Completed. Rudder and aileron true.
Tested and 0. Tested and set. Set and checked.
Taxi and takeoff briefing.
Complete.
Before start checklist completed to the line.
I got 2 minutes to go here still. Perfect.
Hey guys, all passengers are on board. Are we cleared to close?
Go for it. Yes, please. Thank you.
Thanks. Let me know if you need anything.
Alright. Hopefully it should trigger all this stuff to close. Okay, the jet bridge is gone. The doors are mostly closed, except for some reason the main door is still open. Yeah. We're trying to close the main door. I don't know why it's not closing. There it is. Now it's closing. There. Now it's closed. And let's just check as well, because for some reason lately there seem to be some glitches in here, and it doesn't always want to seem to remove, oops, not that one, FS actions, chocks and stuff like that. See, the chocks are not being removed automatically anymore either. I'm not sure why. Oh, that's no good. Hopefully that didn't wipe out everything. No, it didn't. I neglected to switch to the APU bus before we started here. I'm really, my head is not in this game today. Okay, but it seems like our flight plan is still in here. I see the route is still on here. Let's just check the legs page. Yeah, it seems like everything... Got an altimeter disagree now. I'm going to give it a couple of seconds to sort of figure itself out after that little power glitch, because it doesn't often like power glitches. I hope I don't have to power it down and power it up again, because that may just be the end of this. Alright, so we have altimeter disagree and CDS fault. Yeah, okay, so for some reason his is set to standard. There we go. So we got rid of the altimeter disagree. How do I get rid of that CDS fault? Hold on one second. Let me just check my QRH if I can find it here. 737 QRH. Let's see if I have a listing for the CDS fault. 10.3. I do have a listing for the CDS fault. Hopefully it doesn't require like a power cycle to reset it, because I don't want to reprogram everything at this point. CDS fault annunciation indicates a CDS fault occurs. CDS annunciation on the ground only before the second engine start. Do not take off. Fantastic. Oh, good. It cleared itself. Alright, good. Okay. Let this be a lesson to you to make sure that that power is all properly disconnected. Okay. I think we're ready. Let me just do this as well. Make sure we're on the current flight page here. We are. And I think something else I didn't do was I didn't fire up my Sim Toolkit Pro. Now it's firing up while we start this. Before start checklist below the line.
Flight deck door closed and locked. Anti-collision light on. Before start checklist complete.
Release parking brakes. Commencing push. Due to icing conditions, please stand by for engine start until push completed and brakes set.
Start sequences 1 and 2.
Check.
Start engine 1.
Starting 1.
We now request your full attention as the flight attendants demonstrate the safety features of this aircraft. When the seatbelt sign illuminates, you must fasten your seatbelt.
There we go. Cut into rotation. The start valve is open. Brrrr, look at that EGT minus 33. It is cold out there today, people. Oh, glad you went out and did the walk around, buddy. Better you than me.
There are several emergency exits on this aircraft. 2 forward, 2 aft, and 2 over each wing. Please take a moment to locate the exit nearest you. In some cases, the exit may be behind you. If we need to evacuate the aircraft, floor level lighting will guide you toward the exit. Doors can be opened by
Valves
using
will
the
open.
direction of the arrow. Each door
Fuel
is
will
equipped with a
flow,
label slide, which
and the engine will start warming itself up now. Ooh, this will be a smoky start too, with that kind of cold temperature in there. And then it's going to spew out some smoke for a couple seconds before it starts to burn cleanly. It's going to take a little while for that oil temperature to get up from minus 33 as well. What's funny is that the oil pressure is not spiking too much. On a cold day like this, where it's minus 30 and the engines are completely cold soaked because it's the first flight of the day, so the engines are minus 30 on the inside, this oil pressure would be up to like 200 by now. The oil would be at minus 30. That oil is like sludge.
Waiting your confirmation for good engine start.
Starter cut out.
And because it takes a little while like for it to get warmed up, that oil pressure would be just like, you know, easily 100 plus psi just from trying to force this cold oil through all the piping. Start engine 2.
Starting 2.
The fact that it peaked at 35 psi that is not particularly realistic. Alright, there's our N2 rotation.
Tampering with, disabling, or destroying the smoke detectors located in the lavatories is prohibited by law.
Got a little bit of oil pressure indicating.
All other safety information in the card located in the seat pocket in front of you. We strongly suggest you read it before takeoff. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask one of our crew members. We wish you all an enjoyable flight.
Alright, valves are opening. Fuel's flowing, and engines are now putting out some warm exhaust. And one's got positive rotation. And look at how fast this oil temperature came up here, 49, 50 degrees. I don't know that I believe that this oil temperature pressure simulation is really totally realistic. In a cold, cold environment like that, that pressure, it would take a while for this oil to get up to an operating temperature, and that oil pressure should be like ridiculously high. I don't know, I haven't operated the 737, so I don't know 100% that that's true for the 37, but basic physics, the basic operation of a jet engine doesn't change from one jet engine to the next, so those basic ideas should still be pretty consistent. When it's minus 33, that oil pressure should be 100 psi until the oil warms up. Okay, we got the good start. Go ahead and do that. You guys can clear the disconnect. While you're doing that, I'm just going to go ahead and set up my Sim Toolkit Pro here to start tracking this flight as well. There we go.
Unlocking gear.
Actually, what I'll do, I think, is I'll move it over here to my other window for now, and then I can bring it back if I don't want to show you guys what's going on there.
Tow truck disconnected. Bypass pin removed.
Alright, farewell Winnipeg. We are leaving the cold of the prairies behind. We're going to go back to the damp of the coast. Where it's not quite as cold, but it might as well be with all the moisture out there.
Left is clear. Right is clear.
Flaps 10.
Flaps 10.
And now this one we don't have flight controls, but here we go. Rudder as well, and we're good. And where did they go? Are they gone? I don't know where my ramp guys went, but I guess they're gone. Very good. Before taxi checklist.
Before taxi checklist, generators on. Row 8 on. Anti-ice off. Isolation valve auto. Engine start switches continuous. Recall checked. Auto brake, RTO, engine start levers,
Idle detent.
flight controls,
Checked.
dispatch clearance,
Checked.
checked. Before taxi checklist complete.
I noticed that there was still a flight control message here, and the yaw damper was still off, so we switched that on as well, which the FO obviously missed, so that's fine. And we've got Unicom up, very good. Let's go ahead and give it some power here. Clear on the left.
Clear right.
Set taxi light on.
Taxi light on.
Winnipeg traffic, good morning. WestJet 307 is taxiing from the terminal for departure runway 31. I don't even know, honestly, if there's other airplanes out here or not. I had V-Pilot open. Nope, there's no airplane on VATSIM within probably about 100, 200 miles of me easily, so talking to myself, apparently. That's okay. Alright, so we're going to go straight ahead, out Echo, and then around Hotel to get to the runway. Farewell, Sim Add-ons, Winnipeg. I can't remember, I think we might come back here one more time, actually, in this season. Winnipeg is not a bad airport to visit. It's a it's a very nice mix. It's got a fairly big, terminal here, but it's also got a fair amount of GA traffic as well. It's kind of the gateway to a lot of northern Manitoba, especially, and some of western Ontario as well. So it's a bit of a gateway airport. A lot of connections through here, and certainly I wonder right now in the real world how little traffic there is happening in at Winnipeg in the real world. While I'm thinking about it, just give me 1 second here, guys. I'm just going to check. And the flight button is up here, which means that my pilot's light is tracking properly. I certainly wonder how much traffic there is, because it is probably pretty quiet out there at most of these airports. And it's sad because in Canada especially, aviation is such a huge link, a huge transportation link. The country is just so vast, and so many places are so remote. Large swaths of the northern part of the country have no road access whatsoever, and the only access is by air, or perhaps during the summer by a very short marine season. Maybe you might get an ice road in the winter, but most of these transportation links are seasonal at best. So the only year-round transportation link for large number of northern Canadian communities is aviation. And with aviation failing the way it is right now, these links are going to all break. And what's going to be left, I don't know. It's a little disheartening to be involved in the aviation business right now, that's for sure. And the funniest thing is that almost every other, major developed country stepped up to support their aviation industry at the start of this whole debacle, except for Canada. For some reason, Canada, where travel by aviation is almost essential, more so than so many other countries. The United States has a road network that reaches all the corners of the country, except for, the remote parts of Alaska. But you can drive to anywhere in America if you have enough time. But Canada, that's not even an option for a lot of these communities. You can't deliver goods. You can't deliver goods by road. You can't deliver groceries. There are places in northern Canada where groceries are ridiculously expensive because everything on the shelf in the grocery store arrived by airplane. So, like a bottle of orange juice will be $18. $18 because it had to be shipped by air, because it's the only way to get it to that community. And it's really unfortunate, and especially now, like with so many of these aviation links breaking because people are not allowed to travel, and the passengers may not pay the full bill for operating the airplane. The freight may pay part of it, but the freight alone can't pay for all of it either. The industry has sustained itself for years on sort of having both available, and without the passengers traveling, with just the freight traveling, a lot of these airlines are just not going to survive. The next quarter is probably going to bring some bankruptcies if something doesn't change very soon. Anyways, I'll stop just discussing the depressing things because it's not particularly uplifting. Come in here to try and get away from the real world. But since we simulate the real world, it's hard not to completely forget about it. Or it's hard to completely forget about it. Get away from it completely. Alright, so the threshold of 3.1 is right over there, so let's go ahead and get this started. Before takeoff checklist.
Before takeoff checklist. Flaps.
Flaps 10, green light.
Stabilizer trim.
6 up set. Set and checked. Set and checked.
Before takeoff checklist complete.
Thank God for that set and checked shortcut that they programmed into FS2 Crew. If you're ever lost on a command, you can't remember it, or you can't trigger the correct command, your voice activation does not recognize the command properly, just set and checked. We'll skip an item. We'll consider an item complete. Clear on the left.
Clear right.
Winnipeg traffic. WestJet 307 is taking position runway 31 for departure. Runway entry procedure.
Check. go.
Very good. Lights. Ready. Stable. Takeoff. Check thrust.
Check.
Didn't arm the auto throttle, that would help.
Thrust set.
Checked.
80 knots.
Checked.
V1.
Rotate. Positive rate.
Gear up. Flaps 5.
Laps 5.
Little wind shear layer there. Flaps 1.
Laps 1.
Speed kind of jumped all of a sudden.
1000 to limit. Checked.
Check. Flaps up.
Laps up.
Select Command A.
Command A.
We're going to go ahead and set our cruise altitude at flight level 340. Flight level 340 set.
Checked.
3600. We are back in VNAV speed. And we're going to go ahead and go
Checked.
directly to live B. Confirm execute.
Confirm. Checked.
Now navig to live B. After takeoff checklist.
After takeoff checklist. Engine bleeds. On. Packs. Auto. Landing gear. Up and off. Flaps. Up. No lights. After takeoff checklist complete.
Checked. We're going to get the anti-ice on because it looks like we're going to scrape this cloud layer here. And away we go.
Happy to race the cabin.
Go for it.
Okay.
Alright, and we're on our way back to Vancouver. Farewell, Winnipeg. Behind us there somewhere. Brrrr, look at the snow out there. It is cold out there on the prairies today. Yes, I know I haven't streamed much lately. Life has been a challenge, and I'm going to try and do it a little more regularly. Kids are heading back to school, which is going to kind of help free up a little bit of my time. It's just my schedule has been so completely opposite from what I wanted it to be. My work schedule has been so completely opposite from what I wanted it to be that, yeah, streaming unfortunately has become it's one of the first things to go when I just don't have the time. And it's unfortunate because I enjoy streaming too. I really do. Although today I just feel like today is interesting, and I'm going to make a point about it now. Because if you go back and you watch the first 20 minutes or half an hour, you're going to see tons and tons of silly little mistakes that I made as I was setting this up. And I've done this so many times now. I've done over 40 streams here of a pilot's life. And not always in the same airplanes, but in similar airplanes, and I have a fairly good idea of what I'm doing with a pilot's life now, and with streaming in general. And today, I was distracted, and it's amazing the things that you miss when you're distracted. Speaking of distraction, there goes my FMS camera, just fell for no reason. It's amazing how bad distraction can be in the aviation industry. It really is. And it doesn't take much. There we are, we're through 10,000. Go for it. Okay, he's got all that stuff done. He's got all the 10,000 stuff done. Good. It's amazing how bad distraction can be, and it's not like the overt mistakes. It's the little subtle things, just things that you realize that, oh, I missed that, oh, I missed this, and those things start to add up to potentially a big mistake and potentially a big accident somewhere down the road. So it's amazing how all those little things contribute, and it doesn't take much. So you've got to feel for all the people who are involved in this industry right now, most of whom are sitting there, you know, as they're flying and probably questioning, how much longer are they going to be flying for? You know, is the company going to lay more people off in another month or two? These kind of stresses, you know, even when you try to come to work and you try to do your job to the best of your ability, real life, real life always creeps into the back of your head, and you just can't help it, and it distracts you. And when there are stresses, a lot of stresses in your life, it can cause a lot of distraction. So, you know, job security would be probably one of the biggest ones nowadays, but also, you know, the health and well-being of your family. Everyone's concerned about that. You know, every time you go to the airport, am I going to bring home the disease to my family just because I went to the airport to go do my job? What about, you know, my kids? My kids go to school. Are they gonna get sick for having gone to school and participated in society? So there's all these stresses. You can't help but think about them. Your mind can't help but wander. It's human nature, and it's so easy for then those outside stresses, when they are great stresses, to distract you from your work. You know, there's always stresses in people's lives, and you never know what's going on in somebody's life. So it's important. That's why I think it's super important that there's always 2 crew members at the front of every airplane, because that they can check each other, regulate each other, and if either person is distracted and making mistakes, the other person will hopefully catch most of those mistakes. The whole idea of single pilot airliners, it just scares me. And it's not because the technological abilities don't exist, because they do. Although I have to say, having flown many different airplanes, the technological possibility of single pilot flight is not great. A lot of flights are a lot smoother because the pilots know and understand their equipment and operate it to create a much more smooth flight for the passengers. One thing, if you ever get into these single pilot or even no pilot flights, you're going to notice about them is they're very rough. You know, computers are all about straight lines and yes or no, kind of black and white, ones and zeros, and the real world, it's not like that. You kind of, especially with people, you want to smooth out the edges. You don't want to go suddenly from cruise into an immediate descent as quickly as possible. You want a nice smooth transition, and unfortunately most of the airplanes out there, the autopilots and the FMCs, are not well designed to handle those yet. So there are some technological limitations. Technologically it's possible, but it's not going to be a very nice ride for a lot of people. And Jamie says he understands the concerns, but fortunately he lives in the middle of nowhere with only 300 people around. So yeah, you're kind of lucky. People who get out in the aviation industry usually are not that lucky. You're usually in major urban centers and dealing with different random members of the public all the time. It's not easy. But yeah, it amazes me how much just a little bit of distraction on my part has already decreased my performance today, and it's been subtle. And if you really haven't been focusing, like, I'm aware of it because I know what I expect from myself. You know, someone who's perhaps comes in and is not aware of my own personal normal performance level wouldn't even notice perhaps some of the little mistakes I've made, but things like not starting my flight tracker before I started the stream, just a few setup type of things that I didn't I didn't do that I would normally do just because I was distracted. And it could happen to any number of things in the flight deck, and that's why we use the checklist, we use the flows, but even then, it's easy for things to just get missed. That's why the checklists are super important. It's easy, especially when you're just doing flows, to miss things. We're human beings, we're not perfect, our brains will eventually break down even when things are habit, and even when things are habit, that's not necessarily a good thing. If you do things enough time, when you want to do something differently, you won't be able to do it differently because of the habit. And case in point, yesterday I was trying to save a log file that I don't normally save. And I said to myself, oh, I've got to make sure when I shut the program down that I save the log file. And sure enough, what did I do when the program shut down and asked me if I wanted to save the log file? I clicked no, because I clicked no every single time. I've closed that program pretty much for the last, 5 or 7 years. So yes, no, cancel, cancel, cancel. And that's how I shut the program down, and without even thinking, I closed it down without saving the log file, and then 3 seconds later I'm like, oh my god, I'm an idiot. Today's flight is about 2 hours and 40 minutes in the air, I believe. Hold on, I got the flight plan right here. I'll give the exact precise answer, but it's about that anyways. It's Winnipeg to Vancouver. It's 2:51. We're actually going to see if we can cut that down here. So let's do this while you're bringing it up to me here. I am going to see what we can do here. So we're showing 10,000 overhead Vancouver. We only need about 5,600 to go to our alternate. So let's bump up this cost index from 7, which is a ridiculously low cost index. I guess if the airline wants to save money, that's where it's at. Let's go up to 50. And let's see what that does to our prod calculation here. I don't even know what the time was. 1752, 1751, 10.1. That didn't even make a big difference to the time or the fuel burn, really. Let's do it again even. Let's bump it up to 100. Which probably won't make too much of a difference either. Execute. Well, that saved some time actually. 1749, that saved about 3 or 4 minutes. Increased our fuel burn by about another 500 pounds or so. Puts us right up into the red line though. Just gonna be hugging that red line now. How's the volume? How's the balance on this? It feels like the background noise is fairly loud today, so I'm gonna just maybe eke it down a little bit here. Because I feel like you're just listening to the hiss of the air and nothing else. And yes, aviation is a noisy business, but on stream you don't want to hear just that sound. You're here to hear me, not the airplane. Ah. Alright, well, we're underway here. Let's zoom out a little bit more here and see what we can figure out here. Put up some stations, too much data, but there we are. YDR, VLN, Vinco, Raybox, and eventually down here somewhere about 600 miles or so hence is Vancouver. I guess, let's see here, distance to go. Does it not give us the distance to go? Altitude. Oh yeah, distance to go, DTG, yeah. So 950 miles, so it's almost a 1,000-mile trip. Well, that sounds like a challenge. Jamie says he might be the youngest viewer I have. Anyone else want to come out there and say I have an even younger viewer at this point? And that brings up something else interesting too, which is just the general demographics of this hobby. If you didn't see it, Navigraph released about probably about 3 weeks ago now, I think, the results of their annual survey from last year. They released the whole package, all the results, just a couple weeks ago, and it's an interesting thing to walk through. A lot of it is not terribly surprising at the end of the day. Having read a couple of these reports now, not terribly surprising. One thing is that the demographics are fairly consistent across the board. Let's see if I can find it here. I had it up here. I was looking at it the other day. I'm just pulling it up right now on the other side of the screen here. There you go. I'll get the full survey report. It's a good survey. Let's just check, make sure everything's happening on the screen the way it should. Yeah. So 3 weeks ago, Navigraph came out with the results of this survey, and they've kind of taken the lead now on this annual flight sim community survey, and it's a great survey because it's just absolutely full of useful information, interesting data. Probably the biggest thing, no, not the biggest thing, but one of the interesting things I took away from it here was just the plane numbers. 23,000 people responded to this survey compared to just under 18,000 the year before. So an additional 5,000 people more than last year participated in the survey this year, which is a huge increase. That's an increase of, what is that? That's more than 40% increase year over year. That's a huge increase. And that's just a huge community when you come down to it. That's a really, really large community we are as flight simmers. Like, most of the time I think of it as being a fairly small community because I mostly see the community through VATSIM. And you've got a couple of, obviously there's quite a few thousands of pilots on there. There's quite a small dedicated core community, but even outside of that, and that's what I like about the surveys. It captures people outside of your normal communities. And one of the great things is that Navigraph didn't just go after their customers. They went to all sorts of different entities and said, hey, let's all get together and do this together. Send this to all your members so that you get a really high quality, diverse list. So here's the list of all the people that have participated, sent out to their customers, said, hey, do this survey. We want to get a feel for this community as a whole. And look at the list. I mean, it's lots of the big name developers, starting right with Aerosoft and Carinado, Derzwiecki, Flight One, FS Labs. You got the journalists as well, Frugal Sim and FS Elite, even the sim makers themselves, Laminar Research, Lockheed Martin. It's funny how these things are kind of paired up here. And of course the networks, Iveo, VATSIM, all these different groups come together and send the link out to their users. So this is a very, very diverse target audience, as diverse as you can get probably within this community. So first of all, it's a huge number of responses, which is great because I think that makes it very representative, but it's also really uplifting. Really uplifting to see this many people involved in it. And I think, of course, we have Microsoft Flight Simulator to probably thank for some of this. That probably got some people who were out of this hobby for a while back into it. Probably brought some new people into it. And then they probably discovered some of the other developers and started to get more in depth into it. This growth is not unexpected, but it's still a phenomenal growth from one year to the next. And I wonder if it's going to continue because it's also just a question of getting people interested in completing the survey. It took me, 20 minutes on average, 22 minutes on average. Yeah, I would say it probably took me about that. There were a few more questions than last year, but they're trying to get a very good slice of what's going on in this community. And that's basically just the diagram of who responded based on which link or which company over time. So you can see when different people sort of started sending out their links, Navigraph sort of published it right away at first and got most of the hits, but then some of the other organizations as well. I kind of wish that was in color. That'd be nicer if it was in color. But then, yes, so you mentioned, of course, your age. The demographics across the board are pretty consistent. There's no one age group that really sticks out too much. It's pretty healthy across most of the age groups once you get above about age 10. There is a little peak here just down in the early 20s. People with interest, I would say there's probably people with interest in a career now, thinking that this is a great way to sort of gateway into a career. Not that this will necessarily lead you into the career itself, but it really trains you and gets you thinking about it, familiar with the material that you'll learn in this career. And also, I would say people with free time and disposable income. And maybe not a lot of disposable income, but teenagers will have some disposable income, and they'll definitely have free time to spend on leisure activities once you get out into the working world, perhaps not so much. So I just find that funny. Like, this is the one peak. So yeah, I'll say people probably with more free time than anything else. You come home from school and you can do this while you're doing homework or whatever, whereas those of us that have to go to a job, not so easy sometimes. So I really kind of thought that was interesting. No surprise here. 96.9% reported male, less than 1% reported female. Yeah, I can't think of too many women I've encountered. It's funny, and as much as we try to be an equal society, there are just inherently differences now, and of course this begs the question: is this nature versus nurture? Are men more just inclined towards simulation, or are they sort of steered towards simulation by their upbringing? You know, and I don't want to make too many generalizations, because I think that anybody can be anything they want to. But is it the way we raise people in society that boys are just interested in you know, big fun toys, you know, whereas you know, women are interested in, I don't even know, you know, more community-based things. You know, certainly to take some examples from my own life, like you know, looking after fostering, running foster groups with different animals. Like, that's something that is, for so that group that I associate with is predominantly run by women. So, you know, as much as I think we are trying always to be a more equal society, even subconsciously, I think some of us promote this. Not that we try to promote it, but we just, you know, this is just, you know, how young an age do we put this onto boys and girls to fill certain roles? And I've tried to encourage my kids, you know, whatever you want to do is great. You know, whatever you show an interest in, a skill in, we'll pursue that. You know, it's not you can or can't do this because you're a girl, or you can or can't do this because you're a boy. Whatever you show interest in is what, go for it. We're going to support you in it. But yeah, nevertheless, this is not terribly surprising for being stuck in the community. It's a bit of a shame. And what could we do to maybe open up the female demographic? Is there anything we can do? For some reason, women just don't want to stare at a simulated computer screen of an airliner for hours and hours on end. I don't know why. Almost level there at 340. But yeah, so there were some interesting things in there. They hit employment demographics sort of all over the place. Has your employment situation changed due to COVID-19? The vast majority, no. You guys are lucky. Because, and again, I think this speaks to the demographic of being generally a more, I hate to say upper class, but definitely a more middle class to high-end middle class demographic, people that probably can work from home. If you're familiar with computers and you enjoy using computers for entertainment, you probably use them for work as well. So probably a lot of people involved in jobs where they've been able to stay home and work from home. Survey results of where people live. US 26, UK 13, Germany 10, Canada 5. Not too bad for Canada there. Canada's performance came up pretty well, considering we don't have a large population. A lot of well-educated people. Well, a lot of and I won't say non-educated people, but probably people who are still in their education. Yeah, wasted too much money. Let's not even get into the spending. And here, even this here, so your yearly income level before tax, you know, peaked at the 50 to 60,000 range. So we're not looking at like a hugely rich demographic, but probably more technologically inclined, and that's why a lot of people didn't see their employment situation change. The other thing too is you've got to look at the age demographic again. If you're talking about younger adults and potentially people still in school, if you weren't really working before, you're not really working now. COVID didn't change that per se. So that, you know, did COVID change your work situation questions a little bit loaded. It assumes you're kind of normally employed. So yeah, there was lots of interesting stuff in here. This one surprised me a bit, is the number of people who don't work in aviation, because you do find a lot of people. I guess you get about basically about 18% of people do work somehow in aviation. 1,000 to level check. Yeah, like as pilots, as mechanics, instructors, dispatchers, all sorts of stuff. So there are quite a few people in here that have the interest in aviation, but the vast majority are not pilots. This is just simply purely a recreational thing. I'm just trying to think about what other results that in here that were really and truly interesting here. The other things that start to get more interesting are, of course, the demographics of what simulator people are using. Do you fly a simulator on a mobile device or tablet? Now, 70% of people said yes, which is a surprisingly large number to me. I find that tablets just horrendous input devices. Convenient to have them sort of in your hands all the time, but horrendous input devices. So I'm really, yeah, that one kind of blows me away. I'm not into flying on a tablet or mobile device. I just don't see without the good input in there. Challenging. Here's another one that I thought that I read a little bit with interest because, of course, I'm involved in the management a little bit in VATSIM. But do you operate as virtual air traffic controller? 86% said no. Okay, yes, most people are operating as pilots. Only a few are operating as controllers. But the reasons are interesting. I have no interest. Okay, fine, that's fine. But I don't know how to become one. 15% of people went, I don't know how to become a virtual air traffic controller. That's a very large number to me, because it's not hard, and if you do a little bit of reading, it's easy to find. It's out there. All the organizations will train you. I think, was it my last stream? No, one of my videos, somebody asked me, hey, do you have to be a real-world controller to be a controller in VATSIM? No, you do not have to be a real-world controller. They will the training departments within VATSIM will take you, and they will teach you everything you need to know to become a controller on VATSIM. So you absolutely don't need to be a real controller. You just have to apply and undergo some training, and it takes quite a while because it's pretty rigorous. On VATSIM they like to keep it pretty realistic, and especially because a lot of pilots are not real pilots and don't necessarily operate to a high standard. The controllers have to operate to a high standard in order to be able to interact with that. If you had low standard pilots and low standard air traffic controllers, it would be a debacle of trying to communicate and get the points across. So yeah, it's not hard, guys. All you got to do is do a little bit of research. Just go visit VATSIM.net or go and find where VATSIM you would like to control, and go find that regional website, and there will be guidelines on how to join. It's not hard, and they're always welcoming new recruits. Why do you no longer operate as a virtual air traffic controller? I do not have the time. The vast majority of reasons, it's perfectly understandable. And I'm glad to see that most of these other reasons here, I find that fellow air traffic controllers too serious, not trained to high enough standard. I do not agree with decisions made by leadership. These were interesting choices here. I'm glad to see that they're a very small percentage overall. It's sad to see that there are a few people who feel that way, but at least it's a very small percentage overall. I'm kind of happy to see that. I'm sad to see that some people said that, but most people do not say that. Most people, I just don't have the time. It's not that they don't like what's going on in the organization or they disagree with the management or anything. It's just that time, and it's a hobby. So time is everything. If you don't have the time to spend, don't do it. Simulator habits. This was the next thing that sort of I think is interesting. What's going on here now? Narrow body and wide body commercial airliners have traditionally been a big part of the simulation community. People love to fly the big boys. But what's interesting is how much of the single piston is on here now, and even the multi-engine piston, how they're competing very closely with these. I don't think this was the case in the past so much, but now it's become, of course, the Microsoft Flight Simulator effect. The only really decently flying airplanes in that simulator are the smaller ones, the single-engine pistons and the multi-pistons. And so I think those have made a big comeback. They've eaten a chunk away from the commercial airliners. They're not completely displacing them. Lots of people are still flying in P3D and X-Plane and flying with their favorite airliners, but it's not so much that these have decreased as this has suddenly really kind of come out, and the people are like, let's go fly a Cessna, let's go fly a Bonanza, and just go do some sightseeing in Flight Simulator. How many times per week? I don't even want to say where I fit into this demographic here. And how many hours do you spend online typically? Here's another one too. 36% are in the 2-hour mark. This is the sweet spot. Airplanes that can fly the 2-hour flights nicely. That is the sweet spot. And this is why I think there's a lot of room for, this is good for 37s and 320s, but also RJs, things like that. Aerosoft's got their RJ out there. It's a shame that there's not more high quality RJs out there, because that's kind of your bread and butter, your 1 to 2 hour range. 3 hour, okay, got quite a few people who can get to about 3 hours, and then not a whole lot of people are really getting up into the high and really long hauling 10 plus hours online at a time or flying at a time. So this is really your sweet spot, and this is where the developers need to target more, I think. The 777 and the 47 are very world-class airliners, and sort of everyone wants to fly them, and what everyone aspires to. But if you really want to kind of make something that's going to appeal to a lot of people, again, the RJs, the CRJs, the Embraers, that sort of thing, that's really going to hit the sweet spot of doing 2 to 3 hour legs. And part of the reason why the 37 and the 320 are such popular airplanes is because they are very comfortable in this environment, and they feel normal operating in this environment. 47 and 777 operating a 2 to 3 hour leg feels weird sometimes. Look at this too. Have you returned to flight simulation during 2020? 50% of people basically restarted the hobby this year, which is just absolutely huge. And the majority of it, of course, was Microsoft Flight Simulator. Not so much Prepared version 5 or X-Plane 11. Those definitely had a hit, but half of people who rejoined, so 25% of people who were answering this and said yes, and then said yes, I'm new to the hobby, or I'm back into the hobby, it's because of Microsoft Flight Simulator. I like this one. I spend more time flight simulating because of COVID-19. Almost half of people said that. Half people said they spend the same amount, half people said more. I probably have gotten into the more category. Lots of time at home, stuck between these 4 walls, and it's a nice house, but man, sometimes you just want to get out of it. But you can't, so you get out of it in the virtual world. What other interesting things? Platforms. Of course, the dominant platform is the desktop with PC, especially because everything's sort of designed for it, really. Flight rules. Most IFR, but VFR definitely has got a big chunk nowadays. I think probably more than it has in the past. Sad to me that more people are using computer-controlled ATC than the human-controlled ATC. And I thought, now there's no reasoning behind it, but I think this is so much more realistic. The computer-controlled ATC just can't even hold a candle to what real-world people can do. It takes a while to get them trained and get them working properly, get them up to speed properly, but boy, when they do it, it's great. Here's another no surprise. ILSs make up most of the time. 35% of people said they fly an ILS most of the time. Visual approaches are also up there. Contact approaches, VOR approaches, NDB approaches, infrequently to never. ILS to ILS to ILS. Get up there and challenge yourself. Do an NDB approach. Have some fun. He says as he plans to do an ILS into Vancouver. We're going to skip right past the how much people spend in this because it's way too much. The one thing I thought was kind of fun was how they analyze the hardware expenses. The paragraph right here. The average hardware spending is $1,045, but a more reliable is the median, which is 167. Last year the median was 111. The year before it was 200. So, because what is a median? A median is the middle number, whereas the average is the average of all the numbers. So if you have one outlier, and apparently they had one outlier that spent a ridiculous amount that dragged the average way up to $1,000. Someone had a really big spending year, or a couple people had really big spending years. So the median was a much more accurate kind of evaluation there. Yes, and the same thing with the software spending. The average software spending was $5,000. Most people are not spending $5,000, but you got somebody who was an outlier. Removing one of the outliers shifted the average down to $703 from $5,000. So how much did this one person spend to shift a survey of 20,000 people from $700 to $5,000? It kind of, you get interested in what did they spend that on, because that's a ridiculous amount of money. Preferred online stores, no real surprise there. Aerosoft, SimMarket, and SimMarket and Orbx dominate kind of in that, in those categories. And Xplane.org, it's got its own very healthy following, obviously, with its Xplane followers. Freeware versus payware. This was kind of interesting. The combination here, simulator software, everyone pays for it pretty much. Nav data, people pay more for nav data than they do for aircraft. People pay more for charts than they do for aircraft, or certainly in the only payware. In the mostly payware, then aircraft kind of win out. People like their payware airplanes. That's the interesting thing to take out of this. Even more than scenery, people like their payware airplanes, and they tend to pay. They rather pay for weather than scenery. People will grab free scenery and pay for weather. It's interesting just to compare where the priorities are and what people will pay for, what they won't pay for, what people really want to use for free. And flight planning software, I see SimBrief right here embedded in the I don't charge for it. I see VATSIM my VAO embedded here. Wow, you spend an average of $7,500 a year. Maybe you're the outlier. But even so, even $7,500, in order for one person to shift a survey result, a survey of 23,000 people, and one person shifted that survey result by $4,000, how much did that one person spend? It just blows my mind. Community conferences, talking about whether people are going to get together. Virtual airline membership, most people are not members of virtual airlines. Online flying, seems more people are flying online than not, which is funny. And VATSIM was by far the winner on this one. More people fly VATSIM than anything else. IVEO came in second. Project Fly online flying came in third above Pilot Edge. Pilot Edge charges for their services, so that's why you'll get a much smaller demographic all the time. People will take advantage of the free service. Yeah, I fall into this most of the time on VATSIM category as well, as you guys probably have already seen. Important factors for joining online networks. I thought this was great. Free of charge, ATC coverage, and realism of software were some of the biggest things, and friendliness of fellow members and staff. Those were the biggest things. Strictness of rules, regulations, number of active users. These things didn't really factor in so much. Availability of training, doctor support. It was free of charge, ATC coverage, friendliness of staff, and sophistication of the software, realisms of the software. These are the big things that people wanted to see. So I would say that VATSIM wins on a lot of these. Sometimes it falls down on the friendliness part, and it's usually just a few people that kind of really, unfortunately, make it fall down. That's the way it is with any community. You're always going to get some people that are seek to cause trouble within the community, unfortunately. It's just the way it is. But ATC coverage is good, and it's been, I have to say, certainly in VATSIM, it's been up since COVID-19 started. More people have been at home, and the number of people using that network has grown greatly in the last year, and as a result, more people are also interested in becoming controllers. So overall, the coverage has gotten a lot better for certain regions. Certain regions are still, unfortunately, kind of sparsely covered, and that just reflects people's interest in them. But a lot of regions have got a surplus almost of controllers nowadays. And of course, if you fly online, a lot of people will alter their routes based on where they see ATC available. Some people will never change it. They know the route and they just take advantage of ATC if they have it. But why don't you fly online is the opposite question. I can't commit to fly in real time or want to be able to pause my simulation. You know, and that's possible. For people who say that, it's very possible on VATSIM. You can always disconnect mid-flight and then reconnect later on. I guess if you, yeah. So you can pause your simulation that way, or you can accelerate it. You can accelerate time on VATSIM too. You have to ask permission from a controller because it may affect their operation, but you can absolutely do it. So it's funny, like some of the things in here are things that are possible, and people I think are just unaware of it. I'm not a member of an online network. Well, that's a bit of a silly thing. Why are you not the member though? Anyways. I don't know how to speak to air traffic controllers, that sort of thing. Okay, yeah, that can be intimidating, absolutely, in the beginning. I don't enjoy it. 20% of people said that I don't enjoy it. How sad is that? And I've seen that. I've seen that, and it's... You know, the thing, too, is that you can pick to fly online how you enjoy it. You know, you can fly away from ATC coverage, certainly away from busy events, or you can pick the busy events. So we I did Friday Night Ops the other night again, and it was tons of fun. We flew out of Boston down to New York and down to Washington, and it was fantastic. Boston, it felt like the real deal. It was so busy. It felt like the real deal. It was great. The other airports are a little quieter. I don't speak English well. That's a very valid reason, I think. But it's a great way to practice. I had a bad experience, so I left 4%. I feel sad for these people, and I get it because I've seen some of these bad experiences people talked about, and I understand why they feel that way. It's just a shame that they've been disenfranchised like that, because most of the network is generally controllers love to have the pilots online. Sometimes people get impatient because they just get overworked. But it's a fun network to be a part of. I don't have the same charts or data sources as air traffic controllers. Free charts are online almost everywhere. You just have to Google it. It's funny, like I look through some of these reasons. Some of them are, I understand. I don't know how to fly well enough. Well, that's a good reason too. I like that one. You know, you do have to be reasonably proficient at operating your airplane. So practice offline. I hope that you'll aspire one day to get online, though. Simulator platforms, no real surprises on this one. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 has taken the rest of the platforms by storm. What's more interesting, I think, is to combine them. I thought there was one they had where they combined the different categories. No, maybe not. If you added up P3D version 4 and P3D version 5, you get a very nice chunk that would be comparable to X-Plane 11. But X-Plane 11 is the strong second place finisher now to FS 2020. Funny to see how many people are still flying some of the older sims. FS 2002, 2004. But no real surprises here. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 came to dominate the hobby this year. No surprise there. 32% of people switched their primary sim to Flight Simulator this year. And it's interesting to see some of these demographics. This report's available online. Anyone can look through it. Desktop or laptop. Some people said no. Windows 10 is obviously the dominant PC one. NVIDIA graphics cards. No real surprises to any of the hardware or software questions here. VRAM, 8 gigabytes was the majority, but then we had quite a few people at even 4, 6. 11's an odd number, but 12, 16, 32. I don't think there's too much else in there. Console activity. Are you going to play it on the console? Probably not. Yes, with yoke and pedals. I would love to play it on my TV, that's for sure. It'd be a nice big screen. Internet connection speeds. Others hardware. Joysticks, throttle quadrants, pedals, all those things are sort of fairly consistent. Tablets are becoming a very common thing to use as an FMS, as a electronic flight bag, all that sort of things. Additional computers. 15% of people are using a second computer. Hey, I have a second one turned on right now, just to monitor the stream on it. Several displays, that's pretty common, not unexpected there. Polarized sunglasses. Who's wearing polarized sunglasses when they're online? Yeah, oh my god. That I find that hilarious. Head tracker, 23%. You guys know I'm using Track IR. I find that a very, very useful tool. I couldn't imagine living without it now. Thank you to my benefactor that gave me that, because that I didn't have it, and then I got it, and I was just like, I can't believe I didn't want this. It's expensive. It's $200, but it's a fantastic $200. You'll feel like you get your money's worth out of it. It doesn't just work with flight simulators as well. If you like any other simulation games, driving games, it works with a lot of other driving games, other simulation games, space type games. Anything where you're sitting in a cockpit and looking around, it works with. So I use it not just with flight simulation as well, but yeah, it's I couldn't imagine doing without it. It's money well spent on Track IR, because then you can look around without touching anything else. Just by moving your head, you look around. It feels natural, and it's also just one less hand motion. You know, not using your mouse or something else, or your hat switch to try and move around. Hardware panels. 17% of people have a hardware panel. Now that's quite an impressive number. I would love to have one. Virtual reality, most people are still not into it, but quite a few people are into it. To me, it's a cost thing. These things are so expensive. And then the other problem I have with VR, I'll try not to rant on it, but I will never get an Oculus headset, because you have to have a Facebook account just to use your Oculus headset now. And I'm trying to eliminate Facebook from my life. So if you're thinking of VR headsets, I would, unless you really like the Facebook corporation and everything they know about you, I'd stay away from Oculus. And that's one, and I will never, ever own an Oculus headset for that reason, because I am trying to stop all activity in my Facebook account. But cost to me is one of the biggest things that I think is probably making this hard to adapt. It's the cost of a whole computer on top of the cost of your computer. VR views, so motion sickness. You get motion sick? Some people do for using VR. VR controls, lots of information about VR in here. VR desirable factors, add-ons in general, add-on importance of the airplane, as we said before. People spend the most on it, they want the payware because they want the quality. Nav data is also high on that list. Scenery is actually surprisingly high on that list, despite the fact people don't want to pay for it. Weather as well. ATC and traffic, surprisingly not high on that list. Flight planning, good realistic flight planning is important, but aircraft dominate. A good airplane is what does it. What influences you most when deciding to purchase add-on software? Video reviews and tutorials wins out here big time. Watching live streams, hey, thanks guys. News, reviews, and forum posts by other users. Newsletters, ads, those don't usually do it. It's the reviews, it's tutorials, it's seeing it out there in action, and I think that makes sense. Recommendations from friends as well. But seeing it out there in action, seeing it on a live stream, seeing somebody use it. Speaking of which, I am going to go show you guys some new software today to show you somebody using it on a live stream. Aircraft add-ons, the most important factors: virtual cockpit realism, instruments model, flight dynamics realism, engine systems, and realism. So systems and the virtual flight deck seem to be the most important things when picking an add-on. External visual realism is good, but it's not as important. Number of liveries, nobody really cares because we can always make the freeware ones, and really on the inside you can't see the livery anyway, so it doesn't matter for people who are sitting on the inside. Documentation is also fairly important. Sounds. Price, it's got quite a bit of an impact, but it's not as big as the quality of the product. Purchase process, customer support. Customer support is somewhat big. Not as big as the actual realism, but it's important. And add-on developer reputation, I think, goes hand in hand with that customer support. What is the reputation for support? I would agree with most of these. It makes the most sense. But yeah, this one is interesting. Number of liveries is the one that stands out as the one people just don't care about. I don't care how many liveries you sell with the package. I don't care if it comes in my favorite livery, because someone's going to probably paint it. What I care about is that it's a realistic model. When you're paying good money, you want a realistic model, a realistic looking flight deck, realistic systems, flight dynamics, and you want good support. These are the things you want. You don't care so much. Surprisingly, price is not a big influence. It is, but not compared to the other things. Scenery importance, detailed airports definitely was the winner here, and important terrain and topography. Accuracy is more important than necessarily being up to date, but but all of them were pretty important. Weather sources. Half are using weather generated by the sim, but half are using it generated by payware software. I think Active Sky number 1 we're looking at on that list there. Things that are important, real-time weather is the big winner. It's the one thing people are looking more than anything when they're talking about weather in the simulator. People want to fly real-time weather. Realistic experience is also right up there with getting access to it real-time, and most people consider it pretty important to their sessions. People like to be able to sometimes generate worse weather, but most people seem to like to fly it real time. How does it look right now? This is what I want to do. I want to be out there in the real world right now. Charts and add-ons. Navigraph, the big winner under charts and add-ons. No surprise there. They sponsored the survey, but they really have put out one of the best products. It's fantastic. It's very intuitive. Consistent across multiple platforms, so whatever platform you want to access it, it's there. It's accurate. It's on time every month. It's great. They do everything you expect them to do for the money you pay. SkyVector also, and I like SkyVector because it's great. It's got a big array of charts. It's free. It's easy to navigate. The only thing is that it doesn't have a lot of detailed charts for the world outside of America. The US, it's great. It's got the sectionals, and flying in Microsoft Flight Simulator, flying VFR all the time. It's great. It's a pity that that's not there. They don't have charts for more parts of the world. When I want something else for other parts of the world, I tend to go to flightplan.com and use their chart generator. Nobody else really seemed to make any big hits in that category. Jeppesen, the big winner of the types of charts that are out there. And people really prefer the Jeps. And I like them. They feel like they've been designed by pilots. I didn't like them at first, but as I use them more and more, I realized there's a lot of intuitiveness to them that is missing. The FAA level charts, terrible. The Navigana chart's terrible by comparison. Disorganized. Information's not where you expect it to be. Jeppesen has just created some beautiful charts. FMS data, of course, loaded from Navigraph, the vast majority. Default data provided by the software is the other big winner. Flight planning. We use flight planning most of the time. Flight planning to find a route, to generate route files that are importable, to calculate the payloads and fuel and everything, to create briefing packages, to get weather and NOTAM. Most of the normal reasons you'd expect to find a flight plan, and of course the big winner in this category is SimBrief. And as I said in my last view, if you like it, support it, because it's free service, but man, it works so well. Navigraph charts, good for finding things, but not necessarily good for calculating fuel burn. SimBrief is the whole package, more than anything else. People also use little NavMap, PFPX. Those are also kind of good, like flight planning softwares. But yeah, nobody else really wins the way SimBrief does. It really is a fantastic website. If you guys haven't supported it already, go out there and support it, please. Accuracy is most important when it comes to which flight planning service you want to use. I want to have an accurate fuel burn protection, an accurate route, accurate altitude, accurate wind planning, accurate everything. Simplicity, not so important. Level of detail, compatibility with various simulators and add-ons. Normal things you would expect there. Learning airplanes. What resources do you use when learning to pilot a new airplane? Video tutorials. Huge. And it's so much easier to see someone do it and get out there and do it. Trial and error. I like that's a method. Yep. Nope, we crashed doing that. Let's not do that again. Reading the manuals. This is me. I'm a manual reader. People in my family think I'm crazy, but before I take a new product out of the box, I'll read the manual. I don't take the new product out of the box, play with it, trial and error. I'm the manual reader in my family, but video tutorials just make life so easy too. Gamification, media consumption. Which media sources do you use? Video platforms, YouTube. Vast majority of people are watching YouTube. Facebook's up there a lot, and Twitch is up there a lot. Thank you guys for watching me on Twitch. If you paid for any flight simulation content in the past 12 months. No, well, if you watched ads on my YouTube channel, you paid me something anyway, so I appreciate that. That's basically it for the survey results. I have to say, like, it was interesting to read through that survey. There's a lot of interesting data buried in there. A lot of stuff, not surprising, but there are some surprises in there. Yeah, lots of interesting information in that survey, so I'm glad Navigraph did that. Thank you, Navigraph, for putting that together and organizing it with all the other sponsors, and thank you to everyone out there, the 23,000 people that responded, and really gave us a really good insight into what our community is like. And it really also begs the question, if 23,000 people took the time to respond, how many people didn't? This is a this is a community built on participation. So the fact that so many people participated in the survey is not surprising. I wonder what percentage of people did participate as the community as a whole. I think it's a lot. I think people are happy to participate, and this is such a small piece of participation. It takes 20 minutes to do this Navigraph survey out of your year. I think a large proportion of people who have any real serious interest in this hobby probably participated. But there's probably, the hobby is even bigger than that. It's bigger than those 23,000 people. Alright, how are we doing here? We're on our way. It looks like we're about 600 or 700 miles from our top at descent point, so another hour and something there. At least we don't have too strong of a headwind today. So the other thing I was going to talk to you guys about today was something new that popped up just last week. Sort of, I won't say it was out of the blue, wasn't really on my radar though. But I thought I would explore it together with you guys. And that something is a new piece of software, courtesy of Orbx, called Volanta. So Volanta is basically a logbook system for your simulator. The big idea behind it to be a very hands-off simulator logbook for your simulator. So that I think is the key, is that they want to be very hands-off. You basically automatically detect a lot of things. So I just downloaded it last night, and I have not really done anything with it. So we're going to kind of explore it together here and see what it can do. So this is the home page here. I really didn't do anything other than start the software, and it already detected all sorts of information about me here. So it detected the aircraft we're using. It didn't detect the call sign. Looks like I can type that in manually. Yes, I can. I see, and I don't even know. Like I said, I have not used this software yet. This is my first time really getting into the software. It automatically detected where we left from. It detected that we started in USM and we started at Winnipeg. So add a flight plan, or don't use a flight plan. I guess we can add a flight plan. Import a file, paste a route sim brief. Can't do it. My guess is that I probably have to configure it to know who I am. So let's see here if there's a way to do it. So there's your active flight. This is not my active flight at all. We are not here. We are way over here somewhere. I'm guessing because I didn't actually set this up properly, it didn't automatically check in. So let's see what we can find here. Connections. Authenticate with Navigraph, sim brief. Okay, so I'm just going to drag this away because I don't want you guys to see what I'm doing over here, but I'm going to authenticate my Navigraph to see what it lets me do here. And logged me out for some reason. Probably lack of activity, but it logged me out, so I'm going to log in again here. Oh, it's logged into the web browser. So it switched me over into the web browser now. It's obviously tightly integrated, so it's a desktop app, but it's also tightly integrated with the web browser. I'm going to try and authenticate with Navigraph and see what it does. And it has to open a pop-up. Needs my login information. So I wonder if I'll be able to access the charts then through Volanta. As I said, this is me. This is literally first impressions. This is first time I've really looked at this software. So it's making connection. Alright, so I made a connection. I put in my password and everything, and now so it has revoked. So it's logged into Navigraph. And then the other thing you could do is put in information for SimBrief. So I'm going to put in my SimBrief username and my VATSIM ID as well. Alright, so I've updated all of that. So I updated my connection. So now let's see if I go back to my map. If I want to add a flight plan, aha, I can now import from SimBrief, or because I put in my VATSIM user ID, I can also import from VATSIM. So let's import from SimBrief. It says we're now going to Vancouver, and our alternate was Comox if we miss in Vancouver. Briefing, and if you hit briefing in your web browser, it brings up your flight plan, your PDF of your flight plan from SimBrief. Great. Pre-file, VATSIM Pilot Edge Postcode, so you can pre-file. Nice, simple. SimBrief will already do that for me. But look, now my route is drawn on here. Nice. Let's see here. Now, why? Simulators. This is probably why. I don't know what enabled auto launch will do. I'm learning. I hope I don't screw up the stream here. So why is it not recognizing that? So why does it not recognize where we are? Because it seems to think we're still on the ground in Winnipeg, which is not the case at all. We are halfway to Vancouver by now. So how? Flights, aircraft, challenges, statistics, achievements, flights. So you can search for airports or users. You can have friends. I don't understand how to get it to connect to my simulator. Interesting. I don't know why it's not detecting. It detected where we were, and then it won't. It doesn't seem to recognize that we've moved from Winnipeg yet. Okay, click to view flight. View it. I'm clicking to view it. So you can type in various things here to do this. I don't know why though. Alright, so I'm going to try closing it. Hopefully it didn't just minimize it to the tray. Stand by one moment here. Just making sure it did minimize it to the tray. So we're going to shut it down and we're going to try to restart it here. And just see if perhaps it'll recognize the flight when it's restarted. So I don't know anything about the software. This is literally my first time really using it. It seems... Alright. So it knows what aircraft we're using. But it doesn't seem to want to connect to the simulator. This seems to be a bit of a problem. Now, why is it not connected to the simulator? And how do I force it to connect to the simulator? I don't know. I just don't know why it's not working here. Oh, there we go. Aha! Is this us? There we are. Okay. So my active flight. So I'm just going to scroll away from this. If I click on this little compass thing here, it should find us, but it didn't. It recognizes where we... It has the flight plan on here. It had us our VATSIM profile. It did, I think. No, now we're gone. This is not us, is it? No, that's not us. I don't know where we are. So, yeah. It reminds me a lot right off the bat of Sim Toolkit Pro. Very, very similar to Sim Toolkit Pro. So I don't know what to... I don't know how to make it work here. Honestly, it's the first time. It seems very intuitive. It's just I don't see anything of a way to connect to the sim. So it should be monitoring my flight. I imported my flight. It even recognized that the aircraft was there. It recognized where we were, but it doesn't seem to want to connect to the simulator for some reason. I don't know if I have to start... Or is it? See, there we are, but if I zoom out... No, now it seems to have figured out where we are. Yeah, your active flight. Click to view flight. So it seems like there's still some glitches to work out here, but it seems to have recognized where we are. So this is us here. I'm not sure what the different colors are. I think they might be different networks. So if I remove... Blue is Volanta airplanes, so airplanes that are only in Volanta. Some of these gray airplanes are VATSIM airplanes. FS Cloud I'm going to remove. Pilot Edge I'm going to remove. VATSIM ATC coverage you can have or not, which is great. So there's some VATSIM ATC coverage. We don't have any for us. Boo! Well, we do have a tower in Vancouver. Oh, good, good. So we will have something. Airports, major active airports, minor airports, helipads. So it'll draw all sorts of things on here as you go. So blue is the Volanta pilots only that are not part of any other network. Aha, okay. So there is a little map overlay, so you can change what's displayed on your map. You can have friends, so I don't have any friends apparently. But you can have friends. There's a logbook feature, so you can track all of your previous, all of your flights and see where you've been and have a nice little map of all the flights in your logbook. You can keep track of your current flight, and you can also generate routes, pre-file them and everything, so that's kind of useful. You can have a database of aircraft, so it's automatically created one aircraft because I have one aircraft on this route, so I have one aircraft in my fleet. And one of the other neat things, of course, is there's something called challenges, which is a bunch of different things that you can do if you're bored, you don't know what to fly. There's a couple different things. So one of the most popular air routes in the world, fly Melbourne to Sydney, and then you get the Got Milk achievement. So the milk run from Melbourne to Sydney. Miami to Ibiza, fly from Miami to Ibiza. So there's a bunch of different challenges in here. And a country challenge, how many countries around the world have you visited? So there's some interesting stuff in here to kind of inspire you to fly. It's not too different from Sim Toolkit Pro, to be honest. So useful things that it will do as well, and I was looking at this, my data. So what you can do is you can import from other different tracking systems. So you can import from Sim Toolkit Pro Project Fly or the multiplayer network, so VATSIM or IVEO, you can import your stats from VATSIM or IVEO, recent flights from there. So what I did before I started the stream, just because I ran this, was I decided let's try and import stuff from SimToolkit Pro. Apparently it uploaded all my information and nothing more has happened yet. As you can see here in my list of flights, it's still 0, and I have about 300 flights logged in SimToolkit Pro. So that's something that other people have expressed to me as well. I talked to a few other people about it, and they said, yeah, I tried to import my flights and it doesn't seem to work. So there seem to be some issues with this import. Specifically SimToolkit Pro, they were trying to import from SimToolkit Pro, and it didn't seem to want to work. App settings, flight planning, you can just get your briefing format and your kilograms. About, there's not too much really in here. It's a fairly simple system right now. I imagine they'll add more features in the future, but this is sort of annoys me that it's not done. So it's uploaded and queued. I'm going to try this again in another, in another couple hours and see if it's loaded my data. But if it hasn't loaded my data by tomorrow, I'm going to assume it's not working properly. And I read that in the forums that there were some things that said that because SimToolkit Pro is storing most of your data in their cloud now, Volanta can't access it. Volanta tries to upload files from your computer, but they don't exist on your computer anymore because SimToolkit Pro switched to a cloud-based storage system to back up your files. So someone said that was a problem, and they had to actually use an older version of SimToolkit Pro to generate the data that Volanta could then use, which is annoying. So it doesn't seem to me that different from SimToolkit Pro. One thing, it does seem to run a little smoother. It seems to be less processor intensive. I can bring my apps over here. Even without SimToolkit Pro at the 4, it's using about 5% of my processor, whereas Volanta is averaging about 3 to 4. So SimToolkit Pro it's a bit more of an intense piece of software. It does more stuff, so it definitely is using up more processor power all the time. This seems to be like a SimToolkit Pro Lite almost. If you just want the logbook function, that seems to be what this software will really function as well. It won't do the other things that SimToolkit Pro does. I don't see any charts or anything anywhere. SimToolkit Pro will have departure and arrival charts, flight planning. They have a whole flight schedule database in there. I don't know what information we can store about our aircraft, if any. Statistics and flights, that's all we have. So it's just information about that airplane. So we'll see what it looks like after a flight or two here. We can upload an image. So we can have an image for our aircraft. Interesting. Again, this really reminds me of SimToolkit Pro. Not that different. The interface is perhaps a little bit more just smooth. SimToolkit Pro is a little bit becoming almost too big. Too much stuff, doing too much stuff at the same time. This is a bit of a simpler interface. Still seems like it has some challenges though. Like I said, like the import function does not seem to be functioning yet, or at least certainly for SimToolkit Pro log import. And it seemed to have some problem initially kind of connecting to the server or to the simulator and recognizing where we were. See, now this is all it's recognized for this flight, even though the flight was going a while ago. Perhaps because we didn't have a complete flight with a destination, it didn't want to log it, but yeah, it didn't seem to want to recognize that anything was happening with this flight for a while. So this is Volanta. Take it for what it is. I don't know. It has some potential, but it seems like it's still got some glitches in it that need to be worked out. Not sure that it's going to be something I'm going to switch to on a regular basis. The challenges seems like a neat idea, but again, I'm not usually huge into challenges. I usually have no shortage of ideas for flights in my own mind. So if you're struggling to find things to do in your simulator, then this might be for you. The other thing about Volanta that might make it a little more interesting for a lot of people is that it also runs as a web app as well. So fly.volanta.app will show you more or less the same things that appear in the app here. So you've got almost all the same stuff. You've got the settings in there. It runs just as a web app in your browser instead of as a desktop app. Of course, if you're running it just in your browser, it won't be able to track your flight sim. So you'll need to run the desktop version anyways, but an interesting way to perhaps track on another computer what you're doing. Or at least, and the other thing perhaps is to have remote access to your logbook. So if you're not at home, you can still have a look at your logbook and plan things. So that's Volanta. That's my first impression of it. not hugely impressed. Not hugely impressed at this time. Seems like a simplified version of Sim Toolkit Pro. Has a lot of the same functionality, and without the import function working, it's not going to be very useful to me in the long term. Their biggest thing seems to be striving for simplicity. It detected most of this information with very little effort from me, even a little bit less effort than Sim Toolkit Pro requires. But seems like their sim connection has a little bit of an issue. Seems like, seems like their importing has issues still. So until that gets worked out, it's probably not going to be for me. But that's what it looks like nevertheless. Oh, there's a fuel light. That's what it looks like. I'll let you guys judge for yourselves whether or not that software is worthwhile. Alright, how are we doing here now? We are 453 miles, basically 1 hour from top of descent. So that's basically all I've got for now, I think. I didn't see any ATC online for the next few miles. Unfortunately. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our old habit of what we've done in the past, and that is we're going to step away from the flight deck for a little bit. Till we're about 20 minutes till our top of descent point. So for about the next 40 minutes, we're going to step away. There's no ATC. There's not much happening on this network right now. There's a few airplanes out there now, but there's not too much. So, yeah, I'm going to step away. I'll leave this running, and we'll be back at about 10 after the hour, I think. So, yeah, about 10 after the hour, we'll be back to start planning and briefing our descent into Vancouver as we continue across the prairie. So, guys, thank you so much for watching the stream today and sticking with me, and we will be back in just a little bit to get ready for our descent into Vancouver. Stay tuned. Alright everybody, Captain Nav's back in the flight deck here, ready to resume our flight to Vancouver. We are, we're still a little bit of a ways from our top of descent point here. Let's just have a quick little look-see around the flight deck and make sure nothing untowards has happened. I don't see any yellow lights. We are looking at top of descent in 134 miles, 1727, which is 19 minutes from now. So we are right on track for setting up, giving ourselves plenty of time here to set up our approach into Vancouver. Just gonna have a quick look around the flight deck, make sure there's no lights on or anything like that. I don't see anything. We do still have the anti-ice on. Probably should have killed that as soon as we climbed through that cloud before. Too busy yakking. So there we go. Now we've shut down the anti-ice. Flying down through the Rockies. Beautiful scenery out there. Definitely looks cold out there. What's the temperature up here? Our true air temperature is minus 21. Do we not have a outside air temperature, static air temperature reading anywhere? No, we don't, do we? Yeah, well, anyway, suffice to say, it's probably cold out there. Yeah. So, we do have a tower controller down in Vancouver, so that's great. We're going to see if we can hopefully get some ATC to end our flight here, and we are going to check on this ATIS here. So pulled it up here on my good old V-Pilot, Vancouver International Airport Information. Charlie 1600 Zulu, that's a little over an hour old. 330 degrees, 10, gust 15, and variable between 80 and 34 degrees. I'll tell you this right now, this is not a normal readable ATIS. And a normal text ATIS, the numbers are printed as numbers. Trying to read 330 degrees, 10, gust 15 is really laborious. If it said 330, if it was digits, so much easier. And that is the way it normally would be on an ATIS. If you receive an ATIS via PDC, it would be all digits. Everything that can be digits, it looks almost like a METAR. Everything that can be digits is digits. Variable 280 to 340 degrees is really impossible to read. No wonder it's 17 lines too. Visibility 20 meters. Probably 20 miles. Whatever ATIS program is being used is not translating it very well. Few at 1,600, few at 4,000, temperature +4. 29907, IFR approaches ILS and INF 26 right and 26 left. Alright, so we'll plan the 26 right. We'll just plan the ILS because frankly, this day's been a little bit not stressful, but it's worn on me a little bit. And I feel like if I try to do something unusual, I'm going to make mistakes and miss stuff. So we're going to try and keep it fairly simple today. This should be 307. Come on. There we go. Yeah, we're going to keep it easy today. Alright, so first of all, we're going to just plan on our performance here. So we're going to do... first of all, we're going to show landing, and we're going to show the en route landing data. We don't need the dispatch landing data. Alright, CYVR. Alright, we're going to land 26 right. We're going to assume it's a dry runway right now. I don't see any runway conditions to indicate otherwise. We're going to take a worst case scenario kind of and consider winds calm. So show keyboard 0 at 0. Temperature of +4. What a difference. It is almost 40 degrees warmer in Vancouver than it is in Winnipeg, from -33 to +4. What a difference. 2997 on the meter. 9.97. Alright, reverser configuration. We'll do a no credit. We'll use it, but we won't take the credit for it. We'll do flaps 30, air conditioning. The air conditioning on, what did it say, few clouds? 1,600 and few at 4,000 feet. Yeah, we'll just say anti-ice is off for this. Auto brake 2, and there is no non-normal. While I'm thinking about it, I am going to set the auto brake to 2. And let's just see what it's estimating our landing weight to be here. 143.1. That's all that's missing here. 143.100. And enter key on this. Anywho, 5 is good there, and calculate. So our landing distance required 7,500 feet. Our landing distance available 9,900. So even without thrust reverse, we should be able to stop on that runway. With thrust reverse, it should not be a problem. Our VREF 30 plus 5 is going to be 153. Now we'll probably have to add a little bit more than that with the gusts, but we'll pay attention to the winds on final, and we'll just bug up manually based on what the actual winds are when we're on the approach there. Okay, so we've done that. That all looks good. Let's go ahead and go into the terminal charts here and load them up. Use for mass, complete. Edit the clip for Vancouver. So we're on the Canuck 5 for the 2.6s. Take the airport diagram and the parking position diagram. And approach. So we're planning the ILS to runway 26 right, that one there. Done. Alright. So Canuck 5 arrival. Booth fit have stave 230 between 12 and 92. Let's just make sure that these restrictions are in here. And just to make it a little bit easier so I'm not scrolling around constantly, I'm going to pull it up over here. So we do have booth fit have stave 239, 200 to 12,000. Go pad above 9,000. Bogus above 7,000. Obtot above 5,000. Gorek above 3,000. And then inbound on the approach. So all that stuff is there. And what was the altimeter again? It was 297. So let's set that as well before I forget. 297 is set. Alright, and ILS 26 right. We're going to need 111.95 and 263. $111.95. Both sides, 263. Sit inbound course, your side, 263. Don't let it do it. Set course on your side, 263. The race is on. I win!
Course 263 set.
Thanks, buddy. Okay, so that's set, and then the minimum's the other thing we need in here. For the ILS, we're looking at minimums of 209, which should be pretty easy to set because it defaults at power up to 200, so... There we go, Barrow 209. And we do have to put in the numbers into the... We're going to do a flap 30 landing. 148, and that matches, I believe, what we had here. In our performance calculation, we had 153, so VREF plus 5. 148 plus 3 is 153, so that's good. Yep. Alright, so that all jives. And that's about it. The only other thing I need to do is I just need to determine a gate for arrival. So, stand by one moment here. Let's go to what I always use here, which is just flight aware. See if WestJet has done any flights lately. Probably not. From Winnipeg to Vancouver, because frankly, the number of flights out there these days is scary. No. WestJet no longer flies from Winnipeg to Vancouver directly. Let's see here. So probably they would connect through Calgary. So let's see what the gate would be from Calgary. I just want to pick a somewhat realistic WestJet gate. That's what I'm looking for. So the last flight that was here went to gate B17. B17. Sound like we're playing bingo here. B under B17. B17. Okay, so B17 we're looking for here. Parking coordinates. I believe it's down here at the south end somewhere. This is right there, B17. So all the way around to 17. Okay, good. Alright, so that's about it. So, are you ready for the approach briefing?
Ready.
Alright, so we are going to be doing the ILS to runway 26 right. First of all, we're going to be doing the Canuck transition. The speeds are in. We've checked the landing distances. We're going to be doing the Canuck arrival here. There it is, Canuck 5 arrival via booth. This is on page 2. Let go of it. 10-2 Alpha, effective on the 10th of September of 2020. It's an RNAV star. Airport elevation is at 13 feet. I read it there before it scrolled away on me. Altimeter setting in inches. Altimeter setting inches. Translation level, flight level 180. Safe altitude for 100 miles is 12,500. There's a lot of mountains, so it's a pretty high minimum altitude close to this airport. Oh, I see. If I scroll my mouse off the screen, then it doesn't know what to do. Okay. So, again, we're going to... Not that one, this one. Booth, Vitev, Stave at 230 between 9,200 and 12,000. Then GoPad above 9, Mogus above 7, Obtot above 5. And then direct to Goreg above 3. And at Goreg, we intercept the ILS to runway 26 right. So the ILS approach to runway 26 right in Vancouver, plate 11-5, effective on the 25th of January of 2019. The low frequency again, 111.905, and the inbound course 263. So let's verify this. 111.905, 111.905, and 263. That's all set. The glide slope at Totem is going to be 1520. That's right here. And the ILSDA, as we said before, is straight in, full lighting 209. It's BMC, so I'm not expecting it's going to be an issue to get in anyways, but 209 is set. The airport elevation is at 13 feet, and that checks with the landing altitude of 0, rounded to the nearest 50. MSA around Vancouver is highest, more to the north of the field, where it tops out at 7,000 plus. So if anything untowards happens straight ahead or south, it would be the most appropriate directions to turn. And the missed approach is to climb to 420 feet on a heading of 263, straight ahead. At 420 feet, then we do a climbing right turn to 3,000 on a heading of 294, and intercept the Pitt Meadows 261 radial to the Dutno intersection, and shuttle climb to 5,600 before proceeding, of course, anywhere else. So after 26 right, it's the head to 420. 294 heading intercept 261 to Dutno, holding at Dutno. That's all in there. Radar or RNAV is required. Safe altitude for 100 miles is 12,800. As I said before, procedure turn is not authorized. Simultaneous approach is authorized with 26 left, and local arrival only within 10 degrees of the center line. That's about it. It's a normal 3-degree glide slope. We have PAPIs on the right side of the approach, ALSF2 lighting system, and we need minimum RVR 2,600 or a half mile is the specified viz. It's 20 miles viz, and it's a 1,600 view, so we should be good to get in there. Shouldn't be a problem to get in there today. Once we land, it's going to be a convenient left turn off of runway 26 right. Thinking. Convenient left turn. Now the first high speed is Mike 2 or Mike 4 would probably be the most appropriate. If we miss those two, Mike 6. Probably Mike 4 is most likely where we're going to make it by. And then from there, it's probably taxi around the edge of the apron. We'll have a tower controller anyways, but I expect we're going to be like Victor Golf over to gate 17 or something, Victor Hotel Golf or something along those lines, but we'll follow ATC instructions. Terrain, again, lots of high terrain, especially north of the field and east of the field. 12,800 is the 100-mile safe, and 7,000 is the 25-mile safe. So again, south and west are the ways to fly to get away from terrain. Weather is just a gusty northwest wind, otherwise the ceiling is fine and the visibility is fine. Operational, let's see here. No TAMs, anything pertinent. No MELs on the aircraft, everything appears to be working still. Where is my flight plan that I had here? Nope, that's not it. It was here on my FlightAware page, there it is. So let's go to no TAMs, Vancouver. Alright, displaced hold short line for Mike 7. Doesn't really affect us too much. Delta westbound turns onto Delta Romeo. Discretionary oversteer required. Open excavations at April 4. Hotel to Delta 1 not authorized. Zulu 8 left. These are not approaches we're doing. Mike 9's closed. Don't think we're going to use Mike 9. Taxiway Echo. 26 right not authorized below 2600 RVR. That's fine. We're not planning on that. Looks like standby power is not working in Vancouver, so none of the Cat 2 approaches are authorized. Or the low visibility departure is not authorized because there's no standby power. If the runway lights fail, there's no standby power to kick in. So let's see here. We're going to be doing the ILS 26 right. Anything about 26 right? Cat 2 and 3 again. 26 right not authorized. That's again due to that standby power not working. That seems to be about it. So that's it for the NOTAMs. And fuel situation, we need 5.2 to go to Comox. We got, 5.6. We got 10.5 right now, and we're showing arrive in Vancouver with 9.6. So we got still plenty of fuel. We got about 4,000 pounds extra, so we could definitely circle around, do a missed approach, hang out for about 20 minutes before we are really out of luck. So that's all I've got. Any questions? Alright, and we're coming up on our top of descent point here, so this is going to work out just nicely here. I'm going to go ahead and put in 12,000, because that's going to be the first restriction on the star. And while I'm at it here, I believe the frequency is 118.7 for Vancouver Tower. Yes, it is. So let's get that in the backup as well, so that's ready to go. Oh, I don't need it on right now, though. Stay on Unicom for now. We'll need it later. And that's about it. I think we're all set up for our arrival into Vancouver. And for the first time, I think, on a stream in a while, I kind of got it set up early before we even started the descent. Oftentimes, I seem to step away and I seem to come back and miscalculate when to come back to set up these descents. So I'm kind of happy that this worked out today. Let's see here. Where are we? We're just passing YDC. I believe that's Princeton. So we passed Kelowna already. Not too much happening out there. Let's ask Volanta where we are. See, here is where it's decided that we were working. Maybe that's where, because we loaded the flight plan, it figured out that we were actually doing a flight. We didn't specify any information, and it didn't know what to do. I guess. I'm just speculating. I don't know much about the software yet, but let's see here. Oh, we're passing right between Kelowna right now. Ah, neat. Unfortunately, can't see too much out the window there. But let's go this way. Yeah, unfortunately can't see much out there today, but somewhere down here is Kelowna, which is truly a beautiful airport to visit. And super challenging. Top of descent. Pause. from my previous flight. Good thing I enabled that on my previous flight. Yeah, if you ever want a great place to go and fly approaches, Kelowna. It's got some beautiful approaches. They're a little bit challenging because they're steep approaches. They're not steep, but they're through mountainous terrain. The RNAV to 34 is just a continuously curving approach through like about 17 fixes because just to avoid terrain and descend continuously. The other side there is ILSs, but because of the terrain, you can't get vectored onto the ILS, so you have to do one of the RNAV transitions onto the ILS because there's so much terrain. The vectoring will be happening at 9,000 feet for an airport that's situated at, I think, like 2,000 something. So yeah, I forgot to disable my pause at top of descent, but it's funny because my previous flight, I decided to fire up a flight, a reasonably long flight. It was about a 5-hour transcontinental flight. I decided to fire it up and then go to work and come back and finish the flight. Just disconnect from VATSIM, let the plane fly itself, and go and come back from work and finish the flight. Unfortunately, I got detained at work for 2 days. So the airplane just simply stayed paused at top of descent for 2 days. I came back after 2 days. It was still sitting there waiting to start its descent into, I think it was going to JFK. Alright, we're just coming up on that top of descent point any second now. We're just going to watch that speed because we are so close to that red line there. We're just so close and snuggly to it. We got to be careful it does not overspeed here as we start down. I find that this airplane is better than some. 737 is not too bad. It predicts a little bit what the power setting needs to be, or maybe the transition is slow enough here that the power is coming back. The speed crept up by about 2 knots, but only about 2 knots. It reacted in time to keep the speed built up to under 2 knots. I've seen some airplanes where it reaches this top of descent point and it pitches over so hard, it misses the capture, and then it pitches over so hard to catch it that you gain 5 to 10 knots easily. And if you're operating like this, close to the red line at that point, you're going to have a problem. If you gain 5 to 10 knots and you were not paying attention at that point when that happened. Now, if you're attentive, as you should be, especially at top of descent where you know this kind of thing's going to happen, then it's not a big problem. But yeah, there are some airplanes that do not intercept these vertical descents well. This one's not too bad, but again, and this is one of those reasons why I don't think that, you know, pilotless airplanes, pilotless airliners anyways, are going to happen anytime soon, because the technology, there's so much complexity to the technology that just to make it work is incredibly complicated, and then to make it work well and make it be comfortable and not, like I said, like oversteer and do really jerky captures. I see all the time with localizer captures where all of a sudden it engages and boom, the controls turn suddenly to intercept it instead of, you know, smoothing out the whole thing like a pilot would do. It's like, okay, we see the capture coming, we're going to smoothly roll into it, smoothly roll out of it. But a lot of the automated systems, they don't do that. The smoothing is not there. The anticipation is not there. And now we've got this hunting going on here. Hunting for our vertical path. That's not an unusual thing in real airplanes too, especially airplanes that don't have well-tuned autopilots, where it's constantly pitching up and down to try and capture and keep the path. Oh, this is annoying. Oh my god. I'm going to get seasick if it keeps doing this. Okay. I'm going to do this. We're going to switch to VS. There. Now it's found a target VS it likes. I'm going to try and find a target VS that kind of keeps us in that range there, but it's stopped that undulating forwards and backwards following this path, because that was starting to get really annoying. Even now it's doing it a little bit, but not as bad as it was just a minute ago in VNAV mode. I don't see that very often in this plane in VNAV mode, but I guess the winds and just the way it captured it just was trying to constantly get back to it, but it never quite made it there. Okay, let's do it now. Let's switch back to VNAV mode now. And see if it'll capture a little more precisely now. Okay, it's not too bad now. In the meantime, descent checklist.
Descent checklist. Pressurization. Landing altitude is 0 feet. Record checked. Auto brake. Level 2. Landing data.
VREF 148. Minimums 209 feet. Minimums 209 feet set. .209 feet set.
Checked. Bridge briefing.
Completed.
Descent checklist complete.
Maybe it's me, but he sounds really quiet, so I'm going to just turn him up a little bit here with the audio panel. Yeah, group volume. Let's turn him up to 5. Alright. We are on our way down. Yeah, she's still doing this undulating thing now in path mode here. I really don't like it. It's very uncomfortable. I'll give you another second to figure it out, and I'm going to put you back in VS mode. No, you're not going to do it, are you? You're going to undulate all the way down, aren't you? Okay, fine. There. So now it's in VS mode. It's moving at a constant speed of 330. Means it needs to accelerate to get back there. I think it was trying to also do work in flight level change mode, and it was not. It was trying to descend at idle thrust. It wasn't working very well. We're going to have to monitor this manually now, this vertical path here, and make sure we stay on it. But it's a little bit, it's a little bit more comfortable than what we were doing before. All right, that number is still slowly increasing, so we need a little bit more. Come on. And now it's going to overspeed for me. What's it doing now? Okay, 24 is not enough, because it was about 3,000 before, so let's do 28. Let's make a big change here now this time and see if we can't catch it. That seems to be doing it. The vertical deviation there is slowly decreasing. We're going to hit booth at 12,000. See if I can engage VNAV at a lower speed. Maybe at a lower speed it'll be a little bit less touchy.
Crew, prepare for landing.
Alright, coming up to transition, somewhere down there, beneath all these mountains. I think that's the start of kind of the Vancouver Valley over there. I'm not terribly familiar with all this topography here. Somewhere over there is Vancouver. There we go. We got a fairly consistent vertical path now, so this is going to work out really well until we have to start slowing. We don't have a speed restriction until we get to, let's see here, until we get to Stave. 230 at Stave is the only speed restriction. So.
Transition.
.2997 set. Altimeter 2997. Oh. 2997 set. Great. Now he's doing the 10,000s for some reason way up here. I'm not sure why. Quite a ways away still. Now we're starting to fall a little bit below the path, so let's shallow out the path a little bit here. And the other thing I'm going to do is just have a quick look at my VATSIM window and see if anybody else is arriving right now into Vancouver. Vancouver can get to be a busy place. It doesn't look like anyone else is going to be arriving at the same time as us. A couple departures on the ground, but no other arrivals, so that's fine. Should have a deceleration point shortly after Stave as well. Yeah, or shortly after Booth there to hit Stave. So yeah, we'll start our decel pretty much at Booth. Getting a little bit low on the path now, so let's shallow this out a little bit more. I just didn't like that undulating. It was so frustrating to watch, and it would be even more frustrating. I'm not actually in the airplane, but being in the airplane and having it go backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. Oh my god, that would drive you absolutely nuts. It drives me nuts as a pilot when that happens. And planes get into that all the time. Some airplanes don't have good autopilots, or that are not well tuned.
The cabin is secure.
Checked. Alright, let's see if we can do VNAV here again. We'll do 7,000 for our next altitude. And then it should automatically begin slowing here momentarily. Nice to come to here during the daytime, but at night, it'd be unnerving flying over these mountains, especially at lower altitudes, not knowing where you are sometimes. Because we are now below some of the terrain around us here. We should have terrain on. Because that's going to be much more relevant than weather radar today. Alright, so here comes the deceleration now. Looks like the path, it's intercepted it nicely, and it's flying it a lot nicer now. What's the temperature? It's 0 degrees, so we're going to have to put this anti-ice on. Fly through these clouds here. And you got the seatbelts on, buddy? You did? Yeah, let's just do it. Approach checklist.
Altimeters.
2997 set.
2997 set. Approach checklist complete.
Checked. Alright, this will be a nice straight in, easy transition. No need for vectors around or anything like that. Should work out nicely. A little bit of rain out there, and you can see that wing flex really in this view here. The airplane flies to those different air pockets. I might just pull that up on final for a minute or so just to see it. Alright, so she's slowing for that 230 at stave. Looks like everything is working out okay. It's a little bit bumpy down here, but as we come through this cloud layer here, it's getting colder as we slow down. -4 now. She's going to have a bit of a hard time slowing down now with the anti-ice on, because the anti-ice increases the minimum thrust you can have. In order for the anti-ice to be effective, minimum thrust is usually a little bit higher on most jets than complete idle thrust, because it needs some power, some heat, some energy diverted to the anti-ice system. So anytime anti-ice is on, your descent's going to be shallower. You might need the speed brake to overcome that anti-ice. We're a little bit fast. We passed stave at about 243, so we're just a tiny bit fast. We're not doing too bad. Just want to see if it's going to slow down any more on its own. I don't think it is. I think the path is now going to kind of capture the way it is. So we'll get a little speed brake out there just to help get that back to closer to 230. There, that's working. There, they got us back there. Speed brakes are stowed again. Might start to gain power, might start to gain speed just with the high power setting, but we'll see. We'll see. It's not doing too badly. Focus at her above 7,000. Obtot at her above 5,000. We're going to do just a nice gradual descent here because we just have to intercept that ILS. As long as we're above those altitudes, that's all that matters. It is slowly gaining a little bit of speed again here, so let's get that speed brake out again. We may need to keep it out for a while until we can turn off this anti-ice. Oh, she gained quite a bit of speed there. Let's get 5,000 in there. Wow, she really picked up speed there, didn't she? Full speed brakes, and she's not barely slowing down now. There, now it's starting to lose some speed again. Let's close those speed brakes a little bit. Alright, now let's go ahead and just set 3,000, which is going to be the altitude we're going to intercept the ILS at. Vancouver traffic, WestJet 307 is 25 miles northeast on the Canuck 5 arrival for runway 26 right. Close those again. Probably going to gain speed again, isn't it? No, it's doing a pretty good job now. What we'll do at this point is we'll just put on speed intervention and we'll just let the speed slowly bleed back to 210 knots so we can put the flaps out at some point.
Glide slope alive.
Checked. And the glide slope's looking pretty good. Looking like we're tracing it down there nicely right now. So actually we're not going to have too much problem slowing down anymore now. It's become a very shallow descent. We're just about to hit our Obtot at or above 5,000. At which point we can just do a continuous descent down to 3,000. No more terrain to worry about. The terrain is all behind us there. Vancouver is coming up here. How's the temperature doing? Still only +1. We may have this anti-ice on all the way to the ground. It's possible. Hopefully we'll get through all these clouds and we'll be out of it soon. But alright, in the meantime, we're also going to arm the approach. If I can get this button to push in the wind. Thank you. Alright, VOR loc and glide slope armed. She's a rattly old beast today, isn't she? Not too bad though. We're just about coming out the bottom here, so we may be able to kill the anti-ice very soon now. That'll help with this acceleration in a second. Alright, let's do this. Flaps 1.
Flaps 1, 5,000. Localizer alive.
Loc. Glide slope.
Check. 1,000 level.
Gain speed there as we try to pitch down to that. It is... Oh, don't crash now. Come on. Think about it. Alright. ILS 26 right.
Checked.
3,000. Flaps 5.
Flaps 5.
Let's go ahead and switch to tower. This anti-ice that's really screwing us here. Need to get rid of the anti-ice as soon as we can here. I think we got a straight shot to the runway now, so if we kill the anti-ice, that'll lower the idle thrust. Vancouver Tower, good morning. WestJet 307 on the ILS, runway 26 right.
WestJet 307, Vancouver Tower, good morning. Winds 290 at 8, altimeter 297, clear to land, runway 26 right.
Copy the winds, clear to land 26 right, WestJet 307. No, don't do that, wrong switch. Alright, lights are on. Clear to land. Gear down.
Gear down.
Flaps 15.
Speed brake up. Flaps 15.
Alright, we got rid of the speed brake. Hopefully the gear and flaps will help us slow down here. I don't know why it wants to go so fast. I really don't. Alright, there we go. We got her slowing down here. It's coming. But there's those mountains up to the north. Anything ever happens here, you turn south. You don't turn north, because there's mountains 10 miles north of the field you don't want to be getting close to. Flaps 30.
Flaps 30.
Landing checklist.
Landing checklist. Engine start switches.
Continuous.
Speed brake.
Armed.
Landing gear.
Down.
Flaps.
Flaps 30, green light.
Landing checklist complete.
Check. Alright, cleared to land. There goes Totem at, I missed the altitude at Totem there. It was 1520, and the go-around altitude is set at 3,000. Alright, we're ready for a go-around should we need it, but I think we're good. Killed the anti-ice. Through 1,000 feet, we're stable. Alright, worked out pretty well.
Checked.
I never get to enjoy the external views during landing, so I'm just going to enjoy this for a moment. Alright, that's enough.
50, 30, 20, 10.
There we go.
Speed brake up. Reversers normal. Auto brake disarmed.
Let's see if we can make this next one here.
60 knots.
Checked.
Check.
I think that was the second high speed we made there, wasn't it? Let's see what that sign there says. Mike 4. That's exactly where we expect it to be.
Check.
WestJet 307, vacated Mike 4, taxi gate 17, please.
Check. Check.
WestJet 307, gate 17, taxi Victor Hotel Golf. Apron at your discretion.
Victor Hotel and Golf for WestJet 307, thank you very much. Exactly as planned, so there we go. So right here,
Check.
this should be Victor. Okay to clean up.
Master caution. Anti-ice.
Checked. So there we go. Mike 4 becomes Victor right here. Shut off the landing lights. I guess that's my job. There we go. Landing lights are all off. Kill the turn off lights. We don't need those. Thank you. And one thing we didn't do actually during our whole approach process there was we didn't actually select the gate. Nope. I honestly don't know which concourse did. Oh, we said B17, didn't we? Yeah, we did. I forgot we did say Concourse B. Yep, some other airplanes on the ground here in Vancouver. There's a big Air Canada plane that's sitting there waiting to go. But there we go. Another leg of a pilot's life done. Made it back to home base Vancouver. It's a nice day here in Vancouver. It's not snowy. It's not frigid. Can you imagine having that layover in Winnipeg? Who wants to have a layover in Winnipeg? It's minus... It's minus 33. No, thank you. I will. I'll come back to Vancouver. Thanks. Thanks a lot. All right. So this is hotel right here. Left turn on hotel, and then we'll make a left turn on golf to enter the apron in a moment here. So we are on hotel. 1, 2, third left will be golf. So there we go. Another successfully done leg of a pilot's life. And I forget what's next, to be honest. When we get to the gate, we'll have to check and see what it is. I forget now. I think we do some flying to some American destinations at this point. So we will be doing some transborder flying eventually, but it'll be to some different airports, some interesting airports. I think there's like an LAX to San Francisco. There's a bunch of kind of West Coast stuff here, which is something I haven't really visited too much, so that'll be good. And hopefully we'll get some more ATC online for some of these things here. All right, 1, 2. Oh, I must have miscounted there. I must have miscounting one because this is golf right here, according to that sign, which is great. Go into the apron, and 17 is kind of in the middle, I believe. Start the APU, please.
Starting APU. 3 minutes.
Check. Oh, I remember this from before. There were some extra jet bridges that had come from somewhere I don't know where. I wonder if they're maybe Orbx related. Just a few bridges, for some reason. Just a couple of bridges down there that don't go too far that way. Which one is 17? It's not one of those, is it? Because I just don't see any vehicles waiting for me anywhere. Any GSX vehicles waiting anywhere. This is 18, so this must be 17. Where are my vehicles? Oh, no, this is 16. Wait a second. Okay, let's just go check this quickly here, because I think at some point in the last couple of years, the gate numbering system changed. See, I think, yeah, 17 is supposed to be the one here in the corner. But we'll change it to 16 now, because I think they're waiting for us over there. They changed the gate numbering system at some point. So, change the parking facility to Terminal B, Gate 16. And that should give us some ground crew. There we go. Now we got a ground crew. Taxi light off. Set taxi light off.
Taxi light off.
And, oh, he retracted the flaps today, because that's been a problem lately. He has not been retracting the flaps properly, but he actually did retract them today, so that's good. Yeah, see the double jet bridges? Some of those jet bridges are not supposed to be there. They're part of a different scenery pack. I've got to do some research and figure that out. Lights and doors.
Check. Cabin crew, disarm doors and cross-check. Doors disarmed. APU on the bus.
Very good. APU's on the bus. We had 3 minutes. Shut her down. Flight ending soon. Your flight will automatically be completed in 1 minute, so says Volantis. Volanta. Volantis? Volanta? Volanta. I don't even know what it's called. Alright, so he's doing all of that. We got those off. We can go ahead and bring in the jet bridge to the 1L door. And we can go ahead and request deboarding. And once the bridge docks, then he should deboard automatically. Just waiting for all those things to run. Cockpit to ground. Won't work if I don't do this. Cockpit to ground.
Go ahead.
Please connect external power.
Roger. Connecting the GPU.
Shutdown checklist.
Shutdown checklist. Fuel pumps, off. Probe heat, off. Hydraulic panel set. Flaps up. Parking brake.
Set.
Engine start levers.
Cut off.
Weather radar.
Off. 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 Off.
Captain, the GPU is connected.
Off. Shutdown checklist complete.
Thank you. Alright, and there they go. They're unloading. We are done. So there we go. We're done. Another leg of a pilot's life. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Looks like it's auto-completed our flight here, which is great. Our next flight is going to be from Vancouver all the way to Toronto. Okay, so we're still flying domestic for a little bit here. Didn't realize we were still flying domestic. It's Vancouver, Toronto, Toronto, Orlando, Orlando, Vancouver. That's going to be a long one. Orlando all the way to Vancouver. That's going to be very long. And then after that, we do a little Prince George turn before we go down to, or up to Prince George to go down to Puerto Vallarta. And all the way down to MMPR. So we do Puerto Vallarta twice, and then we go to Victoria. And we do go to Winnipeg, Phoenix again later in this season. So we got a little bit of repetition in it. Nothing terribly crazy, but we got some interesting variety of destinations as well. So hopefully we'll be a little bit custom, a little bit used to these ones. Good old GSX Level 2 demo here. You can see all the passengers getting off the airplane into the jet bridge there with the GSX Level 2 demo at Vancouver. So that's nice to have as well. So let's just have a quick look at Volanta. And it does look like it did auto-complete the flight. And I now have one flight in my Volanta logbook. Unfortunately, you've flown one flight and traveled 1,000 nautical miles. That's 0.3 trips across the pond. That's an interesting way of saying it. It's just a fancy logbook program. There's nothing really that fancy about it. It's very smooth. The interface is faster than Sim Toolkit Pro, I think. There's less stuff happening because it's just a logbook and nothing else, so it's a little bit faster. But if it's not going to import my flights from my previous... if it's not going to properly import my flights from my previous system, then I'm not gonna probably continue using it, because in my Sim Toolkit Pro, I do like the auto detection. It seems to be working a little better now, and in my Sim Toolkit Pro, like, I have a lot of flights logged. If I can drag it over here, 360 flights logged for 1,200 hours total. It's a lot of information logged there. Volanta, when I tried to do it, also didn't want to import all of this. It only wanted to import about half of these flights. For some reason. So again, if I can't import my logbook from one place to another, I'm probably not going to switch systems. But I wanted to show you what Volanta was, what it was all about, what it could do, because I think it's new and a lot of people don't really know too much about it. So I did have the chance to do that. I showed you guys what it's all about. Looks like my flight from Winnipeg to Vancouver was successfully logged here, Winnipeg to Vancouver in the WestJet colors. So that's it. We are done, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the stream today. As always, please stay safe out there, be healthy, and hopefully we'll catch you in the virtual skies real soon. Take care.